On, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. This morning, claims police were gagged from releasing information on the Southport murderer.
Devastating details emerge about how Axel Rudikabana slipped through the cracks of society.
And despite the fact that he'd been convicted for violence and was just 17, he was easily able to order a knife on Amazon. That's a total disgrace, and it must change.
Now, that's left many of you asking whether the anti-terrorism agency Prevent is actually fit for purpose.
The Prevent practitioner who took that call then did not decide when filling out the form about risk, ideology, that it should be passed to Channel. So unfortunately, I think this is a very localised failing.
But is a public inquiry enough to bring justice to the families of Alice de Silva Aguirre, B.B. King and Elsie Stankham?
The Chancellor mingles with the economic elite at Davos as her blitz to bag British business continues.
But one business leader has lashed the government, declaring it's never been a more difficult time for entrepreneurs. We'll be debating whether it's too hard to do business in the UK.
Cracking down on fraud, benefit cheats to be stripped of driving licences under new plans from the government. We'll be speaking to the Minister of Employment, Alison McGovern, at 9 o'clock.
Sir Sadiq Khan pours cold water over Rachel Reeves's plans to revive the economy, opposing her move to back a third runway at Heathrow.
Donald Trump gets straight to work, putting the world on notice as he issues fresh tariff threats to Canada, China and the European Union.
China's an abuser, but the European Union is very, very bad to us. They treat us very, very badly. They don't.
And in the sport this morning, the Champions League, Liverpool get their 7th win in 7 games, which guarantees them first or second place going forward into the round of 16. Still work to do for Aston Villa as they lose in Monaco in front of Prince William, and there's life in the old Serbian yet as Djokovic beats Alcaraz in Australia.
A bit of fog around today. Many places will be dry. The winds are light at the moment, but a storm system is coming in for Friday. Stay tuned for a full update.
Hello there, very good morning to you on this Wednesday morning. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast with Eamonn and Ellie.
Morning, everyone.
Morning, morning. And how would you feel about starting a whole new life at 75, moving somewhere completely different? 75 years old.
Well, I don't think I'll be alive at 75.
No, I don't.
I genuinely don't. I
Good
don't.
morning
You
to
will
you.
be.
I don't. Why would you assume you're alive at 75?
75's young these days.
It is.
My father was dead at 64, right?
That's very young.
It is.
Well, I
very
don't
young.
see sort of any reason why I should expect to be there, but this is Richard Gere.
Yes, you can start a whole new life at 75. Richard Gere, 75 years old.
He's
His wife is
75?
41.
Yeah.
He is moving from Connecticut to Madrid to be in his wife's home country.
Wow.
Moving to Spain. So
Can't say I'd blame him.
I can't blame him either.
Yeah?
Very handsome man, Richard Gere, though, isn't he?
He's a very handsome man.
A very wise man, too. He said, as long as Alejandra, his wife, is happy, he's happy, he said.
Well, a happy wife is a happy life.
Absolutely. Well, you know, Richard Gere, he was the first actor ever. Do you see American Gigolo? Do you remember American Gigolo?
Yeah.
Well, in that film, he was the first actor full frontal in a movie. Yeah.
Was he?
Richard Gere. That's really what you saw in the movie. But yeah, he was the first ever one to be full frontal, and that was back in 1980.
Ellie's about to get that out on DVD now.
Oh, stop. No. He's a bit too old.
You have to pause it. Yeah, no, but back in the day.
But he
was a handsome
old
man.
then.
He wasn't old then.
in those
Do you know what, though?
days.
He's hardly changed a dot from Pretty Woman,
Yeah.
really. He's a little bit more wrinkly, but it's exactly the same.
So you don't think there's any work going on there? Because he looks all right, doesn't he? Yeah.
Well, apparently, according to Alejandra, they've done an interview with Elle Spain, and he reads the stories to the children, then she cooks, and then he plays guitar.
How old's the kid? He's got kids then, has he? He's got young
two
children
Well,
at 75?
I would say so, if he's reading them stories.
Right.
But she's only 41, remember?
Right, OK.
But love is a wonderful thing to find. I mean, if they've found that, then congratulations to them.
Yeah, and they seem
Beautiful.
very happy together, so best of luck to them. Moving from Connecticut to Madrid.
And you've found love. I mean, you're tying your love knot.
Love not in July.
July.
Yes. Yes. All the preparation is underway.
Oh.
But not moving to Madrid.
And he's 75, isn't he, as well, which is lovely.
A little bit younger than 75, yeah. But I'm not going anywhere. I won't be moving to Spain.
OK, good.
Don't panic.
Let's get into the news on this Wednesday morning. And the police say they were gagged by the Crown Prosecution Service and warned to hold back from releasing vital information about the Southport killer, Axel Rudakabana.
Well, this comes as the Prime Minister has revealed plans to redefine terror in the wake of the Southport attacks, despite warnings it could overwhelm the police and security service.
Axel Rudakabana was referred to the government's counter-terrorism prevent programme 3 times, but each time it was decided it was inappropriate for him to be taken under their wing.
Well, last night, GB News spoke to former Prevent practitioner and former counter-extremism coordinator about why Prevent didn't pick this case up.
I believe that this is an incompetence, yes, and I believe that the incompetence around clashing ideologies, colliding ideologies is quite broad, and we're seeing young men in particular alone in front of the computer, not being radicalised into any particular ideology, but just being fascinated by violence. And where do we put that? Where does that land? I think it should land, in this case, definitely with Prevent, but sometimes the ideology is really unclear. Well, how come Child Services with 4 or 5 phone calls didn't pick this up? Maybe there needs to be more on people who are just fascinated with violence.
What do you do? What is the answer to all of this? Former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley, maybe he has it. Good morning, Peter. This awful, disturbing situation and why we even, you know, I don't know what's to be done about this Axel Rudakabana, but what an evil little runt he is. What would you have done with him?
Well, already what we're seeing is a very undignified finger-pointing by various organisations, and this will continue, as members of the establishment try to wriggle free from their responsibilities and their lamentable failings by saying, it wasn't our fault, it wasn't our fault, it was all down to somebody else. Well, this public inquiry will, and we can almost write the conclusions now, inevitably find that there was failings. And we will hear that revolting phrase, lessons have been learned. But that will all be too late, because Rudakabana was allowed to carry out his acts of terror and murder on the streets of Britain, creating so many victims, enduring hurt and pain, and quite frankly, what has gone before in regards to this dreadful young man was simply not good enough.
What do you make, Peter, of Merseyside police claiming they were gagged by the CPS about releasing what they saw as vital information about Axel Rudicabanner?
Well, maybe they were, maybe they weren't. This will all form part of this very undignified, I use that word again, inquiry, as people try to deflect from their own accountability and responsibilities. And this is endemic within the British establishment these days. We've seen it only so clearly shown with the dreadful rape grooming gags scandal, as everybody tries to scuttle under the skirting boards and deny responsibility for not doing their jobs properly. And clearly in this case, I think there will be shortcomings with education, health, prevent programme, of course, law enforcement, parenting, and possibly more. This young brute should have been stopped and shouldn't have gone on to commit his reign of terror and murderous atrocities.
I think that's very well summed up and put, and you point the finger at a lot of the areas and the people responsible for all of this. It still leaves us with a problem, and the sentencing will take place tomorrow as to what will be done with him. He can't undergo a full life sentence because he was too young, apparently, to know what he was up to or what he was doing. But it seems this guy knew exactly what he was doing for a long time.
And he planned it, and he plotted it. And clearly by possessing ricin, he intended to commit even worse atrocities and potentially take even more lives. You're absolutely right when you say he won't receive a full life term, because there are factors that he simply doesn't hit, as astonishing as that is. But I hope that long after I've turned my toes up and departed this planet, people like the Parole Board and others ensure that this absolute monster never tastes freedom again and dies in captivity, because that is what he deserves.
Peter, in your experience, how quickly would those police officers in Merseyside have found that terror document and the presence of ricin in Rudicabanner's home?
Searching his home address after he'd been arrested and that address had been identified would have been an absolute priority for the police. And once ricin had been discovered, then the Home Office and other departments like the security services and counter-terrorism police would have been notified very, very early. We know what happened as a result of Rudicabanner's murderous rampage. People rioted on the streets of Britain, which I am never going to condone. But what happened, unfortunately, was that the establishment tried to suppress the truth and allowed other untruths to circulate, which caused a lot of bad feeling, a lot of tempers were raised, and we saw the unforgivable rioting then occur. The state needs to learn that suppressing the truth is a very bad thing to do in circumstances such as this. There should have been clearer messaging, more information got out there in a swift and timely manner, and then all the consequent rioting might, I say might, have been prevented. The establishment needs to hold its head in shame over this, and those people that need to be held accountable should be. But I've already heard voices on the Liberal left already saying, oh, there was nothing that could have been done. Well, that is absolute hogwash. To use a phrase of a former Labour Home Secretary, David Blunkett, when he launched the Serious and Organised Crime Agency, he said he wants people in law enforcement to be lawfully audacious. And if they had been in this case, then maybe these murders could have been prevented.
Peter, we're almost out of time with you, but just wanted to ask, what do you think could have been done then? Could something have been done before he was charged with anything? Could we have perhaps received more information then?
Well, the messaging is, generally speaking, led by the senior investigating officer. But if it turns out that Merseyside police were gagged by the Crown Prosecution Service, we'd want to know who it was that imposed that gagging order, why they did it, what their name is, and let's hold them accountable.
Yeah, I agree with you there. We had the Prime Minister giving his excuses yesterday, but he's a lawyer. He speaks as a lawyer. He speaks on behalf of the Crown Prosecution Service, and there's no doubt that the effect of what they implemented just had horrendous consequences. It made an awful situation worse because of the disturbances on the street. What a mess overall. Peter, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for your comments. We'll ask people at home this morning what you believe and what you think. Remember, you can have your say, and we will reflect that this morning.
Well, let's get more now on the other political stories of the day with the political editor of The Spectator, Katy Balls. Good to see you this morning, Katy. And one of the big stories out this morning is proposed measures to confiscate driving licences for benefit fraudsters. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yes, so this is an idea from the government getting a bit tougher in terms of what do you do in terms of, obviously, that we know of a huge benefit welfare bill, but also when it comes to benefit fraud, what punishments can you do to disincentivize? And this idea of driving licenses is being talked about.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's new. It's innovative. I mean, what do you think? Do you think it could actually work?
I think you have to see how exactly the policy would be enforced and so forth. But I think when you're looking at the government's benefits approach, there's often a lot of talk about carrot. How do you incentivize people back into the workplace, job centres and so forth? But you look at how the system can be abused. And I think having some stick involved is probably something which could be effective when applied in the right place. And if you can prove that people are, definitely, doing this with malicious intent and so forth, then of course, but I think it comes a little bit to how exactly you'd push it through.
Meanwhile, Rachel Reeves is in Davos. She's mingling with the economic elite. Do you think this is all quite performative, or do you think she'll actually be able to bag Britain some more business?
I mean, I suppose it depends what we define as a good business deal. And it's interesting on Davos because obviously in recent years, it's fallen out of fashion for UK politicians. You had, the David Cameron, George Osborne era, they would go and have very expensive pizzas on the slopes and be posing. And it was seen to be reflective of that time. And then I think during Theresa May, Boris Johnson eras, it was almost seen as out of touch. Then you had Keir Starmer say he actually prefers Davos to Westminster, which was quite a strange statement a year or so ago. But he's not there this time. I think for Rachel Reeves, I mean, she needs any opportunity she can get, given growth is looking so anemic at the moment, but it's not clear that she doesn't have a main speaking slot. She's going to be doing various roundtables, and I think the truth of the matter is everyone's going to be more focused on what's happening in Washington and what Donald Trump does than what bankers say in Davos.
And she could be at loggerheads soon with Sir Sadiq Khan, couldn't she? He's been pouring cold water on her move to back a third runway at Heathrow.
Yes, and I think this is an interesting one because Rachel Reeves is obviously desperately trying to signal, not even mainly to her party or the country, but to the markets, to investors, that the UK is open for business. So one of the things is talking about potential airport expansion. However, this is obviously something that's pretty divisive in the Labour Party because there are lots of environmental concerns. Sadiq Khan has said he would take out a legal challenge potentially. Ed Miliband in the cabinet has also opposed airport expansion in the past. Would he stick around in the cabinet? Would he miraculously miss the vote the day it happened? And I think that we're about to see whether Keir Starmer's rhetoric, which is, I will take on vested interest including environmental ones, matches his actions on this, because there will be a lot of critics, I think, of people who would normally be in his base when it comes to the idea of expanding.
Yeah. Katie, I just want you to take part in our poll of the day, actually, which we're asking people the handling of what went on in Southport, the Southport murders. Has the handling, we're asking people at home, damaged your trust in the legal system? What do you think, just in response to that, Katie?
Well, I think you can see the fact that people are talking about a potential cover-up. There's not much trust going around at the moment. And Keir Starmer tried to answer that in his press conference yesterday, where he said he couldn't have spoken about this because the trial would have collapsed, even though he admitted he did know details about extremist, material, terrorist material and so forth. And I think there's some way to go to win trust back, because you've had, for example, Nick Timothy, who used to work in the Home Office, the Tory MP, suggesting that he thinks from his experience in the Home Office, Keir Starmer could have said more if he wanted to, perhaps was trying to not say more because of the riots. And I think more transparency, the better, because you look at the grooming gang scandal, separately to this, but there is, I think, a growing feeling that the government and, areas in the state don't talk about things when they're uncomfortable. And the risk is that this feeds into that.
Well, Katie is the editor of The Spectator. She's going to be back again in about 45 minutes' time. For the moment, Katie, thank you very much indeed. So just to reiterate, the poll of the day is, has the handling of the Southport murders damaged your trust in our legal system?
Yeah, if you want to get involved, scan the QR code on the screen now, or you can head to gbnews.com/poll.
OK, final result with Martin Dobney around 3 o'clock this afternoon. The time, 18 minutes past 6. And let's have a look at some of the other stories we've got for you on this Wednesday morning.
At least 76 people have been killed in a fire that engulfed a popular Turkish ski resort hotel. At least 51 others have been injured by the fire at the Grand Cartel Hotel. 4 people have since been arrested, including the hotel's owner.
The Met Office has put in place a yellow weather warning for the weekend as Storm Edwin heads towards Britain, whatever a yellow weather warning means. I've brought this out before. What is yellow? What is amber? What is green? What is red? What does that actually mean? I think it means it's going to be pretty rubbish, actually. Heavy rainfall and winds. Winds are going to be up to 80 miles an hour expected, with predictions of power cuts and travel delays. That's this coming weekend.
Researchers are calling for urgent investigations into whether everyday medicines like ibuprofen could help prevent dementia. These drugs have anti-inflammatory properties that scientists now think could prevent the disease.
Netflix is raising prices on a number of countries after topping 300 million subscribers for the first time. Included in the list is the United States, Canada and Portugal, leaving many to ask whether the UK could be on that list. The streaming giant recently overtook the BBC to become one of the nation's most watched TV services. See, and this is from all the people who say, get rid of the BBC, forced to pay that licence fee of, 130 odd quid or whatever it is. You don't get much for 130 quid on Netflix, I'll tell you that. So Netflix, they'll take over the world, they'll charge what they want, like all these streaming channels. Let us know your view on that one. We're also talking about dementia there, and we're talking about Pauline Quirke, the actress, has given up acting now because she has announced that she has dementia.
Yeah, so sad, isn't it? It's the cruelest disease. And her husband has given a statement, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Saying she's stepping back, but she'll keep being an inspiration.
Well, we wish her well. We wish her well.
Yeah.
The weather update. Let's go to Alex Deacon and see if he's on yellow, green, red, amber, warnings, whatever. Warning, warning. Here's Alex.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office. Here on GB News, a chilly one again today. A few fog patches again in places this morning, but much of the country will have a dry afternoon. A bit damp and drizzly in some places, certainly along the south coast, some patchy rain also across parts of northeast England, and a few showers further west. But overall, much drier day for northwest England, and some good spells of sunshine coming out across parts of eastern Scotland, and mostly dry and fine for Northern Ireland, South Wales and southwest England too. A little bit more of that rain just trickling along the south coast. May see some in London, but it'll be fairly light. Most of the day dry. Temperatures, though, even where we've got some sunshine, only 5 or 6 degrees Celsius. And for some, it'll just stay misty and murky all day. A little bit of that rain across the southeast, so affecting Kent into the evening rush hour. Again, nothing too heavy, but just a bit damp and drizzly here. Clearer skies further west, just a few showers coming in off the Irish Sea, and 1 or 2 showers into western Scotland too. Much of central and Eastern Scotland dry and clear and pretty quickly again. Those temperatures will be back down below freezing. We'll see another touch of frost forming where we've got the clear skies. Staying pretty cloudy though across East Anglia in the southeast well into the evening. Eventually here that cloud should tend to break up. A few mist and fog patches are possible, but for many it'll be a largely dry and largely clear night, which will allow it to turn a bit colder perhaps than last night, certainly across a good chunk of England and Wales. Any rural spots getting pretty close to freezing. But further west, notice there's a line of rain moving in. That won't take long before it zips across Northern Ireland. A soggy start here tomorrow. And it doesn't stop there. It moves in across the rest of the UK as well. Hitting the colder air, it will provide some snow over the hills of northern England and Scotland for a time during Thursday. That system clears away, but then eyes out in the Atlantic as a storm comes moving in for Friday. Storm Eamonn is going to bring us some problems, and there are Met Office warnings in place. Stay tuned.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Still to come, Donald Trump gets straight down to business. Find out what his plans are for the EU next.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, time is running out on your chance to become our biggest ever giveaway winner with an
It is.
incredible £50,000.
Absolutely amazing. And you know what? You could be the winner.
Oh.
It's just
Yes, best of luck to you. Now, let's go across the pond, shall we? Because he's back and straight down to business. The day after Donald Trump's inauguration, and he's already signed off over 200 executive orders.
OK, there is a fresh tariff threat for Mexico. There's one for Canada, there's one for China. And, boy, he doesn't like the European Union.
You put additional sanctions on Russia?
Sounds likely. The war should have never started. If you had a competent president, which you didn't, the war wouldn't have happened. We're talking to Zelensky. We're going to be talking with President Putin very soon. And we'll see how it all happens. We're going to look at it very soon. One thing I do feel, the European Union should be paying a lot more than they're paying, because under Biden, I mean, we're in there for $200 billion more. Now, it affects them more than it affects us. We have an ocean in between, right? Little thing called an ocean. I mean, what are we, stupid? I guess the answer is yes.
Well, rivaling Labour's plans to dominate the AI industry, Trump also announced a $500 billion investment in artificial intelligence.
Announcing the formation of Stargate. So put that name down in your books, because I think you're going to hear a lot about it in the future. A new American company that will invest $500 billion at least in AI infrastructure in the United States, and very, very quickly, moving very rapidly, creating over 100,000 American jobs almost immediately.
Fighting talk. Let's talk to U.S. political analyst Eric Ham on this. Good morning, Eric. How is it going down, his aggressive style?
Well, we're seeing the return of Donald Trump, and with all of these executive orders that he has enlisted, what we are now seeing, of course, is a bevy of lawsuits against these executive orders. In fact, we know already with the executive order to end birthright citizenship in the United States, 18 states have already filed a lawsuit against that. And so I think what we're going to see here is not only is it Donald Trump versus the world, but we're seeing it's also going to be, in many cases, Donald Trump versus the states as well.
One of the most highly reported, especially over here, one of the executive orders is the pardoning of all of those involved in the 6th of January riots. How is that going down over there?
Well, this is something that Donald Trump certainly telegraphed during the campaign, that if elected, that he would, in fact, pardon many, if not all, of these January 6th participants. Now, the question that many had been wondering is, would he in fact pardon all of them? And we see that he did. And so people like Enrico Tarrio, who was seen as one of the masterminds behind the January 6th insurrection, who had received the most amount of prison time, a more than 20-year sentence, is now actually freed from prison. But again, Donald Trump won, and clearly I think what we're seeing here is there's no pushback. We have heard from some members of Congress, including some members of Donald Trump's own party, who are concerned about these pardons. But what we know about the presidential pardon, it is absolute, and it is frankly unquestioned, and there's nothing that can be done at this time about it.
What do you think, Eric, of what you're looking at, what you're hearing coming from the man who has been president before, of course, and there's a lot of theory that he's learnt a lot from his time on the sidelines?
Well, yeah, that is true that we have heard that. But again, being president goes beyond just the executive orders. If you want to have a lasting legacy, you have to be able to get things passed into law. And that's something that I think has been Donald Trump's Achilles heel. We know that he sought during his first term to overturn the Affordable Care Act, which he was never able to do. He certainly did Infrastructure Week every year he was president, but was never able to pass massive infrastructure legislation. Joe Biden was able to get it done. In fact, one of the executive orders that Donald Trump implemented was to actually stop the release of funds for infrastructure. And so, again, I think what we see is Donald Trump knows how to undo things. The question is, can he actually build things? We've seen him do that in his previous profession as a real estate mogul. But again, as president of the United States, I think that is still the burning question that Donald Trump will have to answer between now and when he leaves office.
Well, thanks for posing it, Eric. Appreciate your input today. Eric Han is a political analyst. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
I noticed that Donald Trump's desk, he has a button which he can press to have a Diet Coke sent to him.
Does he? I want one of those buttons in my house.
I thought it was a joke, and I kept looking at it on Instagram and seeing it. But apparently, he's quite addicted to Diet Coke, so
I understand
he just presses it, and then a Diet Coke in a glass with ice cubes arrives for him.
Little slice of lemon, lovely.
But he does amaze me. He's 78 years of age. So he's approaching 80. He's the oldest president there's ever been. And he seems to have a lot of energy doing what he does. He loves, you see him on his planes and things, eating Big Macs.
Yes.
Right, so he loves that.
Loves his McDonald's.
He plays a little bit of golf, but he...
I think he's on the buggy quite a lot, yes.
He's on the buggy quite a lot, between holes, it has to be said.
Yes.
Apparently, he gets by on 5 hours sleep a night. But he does well for it, doesn't he?
He does do really well. And do you know what? That's really interesting. He is the oldest president to be inaugurated, actually older than Biden was when he first took the oath. But there's been no conversation about him being old, has there? Have you heard anything?
No, because I suppose he doesn't act old.
And he's fighting fit.
The thing about Joe Biden is Joe Biden has a shuffle that he does, and his feet go like that, and it makes you feel, what's wrong with him? Why is he not walking properly and whatever?
Yeah.
There's definitely something in the background, health-wise, with Joe Biden, but Trump doesn't show any signs of that at all.
No signs of it at all. He's fighting fit, isn't he? 78 years old. On a diet of Big Macs.
And Diet Coke.
And no sleep.
And no sleep. There you go. Sounds like Paul Coit, really. And he'll be here with all the sports news, because that's all he does. He stays up late at night and watches lots and lots of sport, so we can bring it to you next.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In North Yorkshire, the A64 is closed each way between Welburn and High Hutton after an accident. In Staffordshire, the A50 is closed each way along Waterloo Road at Burslem in Stoke-on-Trent after a fire yesterday afternoon. In London, the A598 Finchley Road is closed southbound off the A1 at Henley's Corner after an accident. And the A212 is closed along Church Road in Upper Norwood because of a fire at a block of flats. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking 20 minutes in westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. And Gatwick Express train services are suspended because of a signalling problem, with Southern suspended between Victoria and Gatwick Airport. Thameslink services not running between Bedford and Three Bridges, and Southeastern rail services between Victoria and Orpington aren't running between Kent House and Beckenham Junction because of a faulty rail. They're diverting instead via Catford. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
We've got the Daily Mail now with the latest in the court case over whether a man is a woman or a man. It's a tough question. And J.K. Rowling has given her opinion. I think I can guess what it is, Cressida.
Explosive twist in Australia's What is a Woman trans battle as Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling gets involved. So this is the court case Giggle versus Tickle. Tickle was a...
He's Mr. Men.
That's right. It's a Mr. Men trans battle.
Kind of is a Mr. Man.
It was a women's group, wasn't it? Giggles... I get it wrong. Giggles for Girls. And Roxy Tickle, who is a trans woman, wanted to join this group and wasn't allowed, was banned for being a biological male, and then sued and amazingly got $10,000 for this, which is already extraordinary to me.
Yeah.
But it's now doubling down and is going to file a cross appeal seeking to upgrade the judgment.
Yeah.
So Roxy has come back for another bite of the cherry.
And I've had a look at this Roxanne Tickle, the trans woman.
Is she
pretty? No, not one of the pretty ones. Not a Blair White. Just looks like, to be honest, it looks
careful,
like
you could be sued for $10,000.
Looks like one of us.
Yeah.
To be honest, no. Like I mean, I'll happily.
For yourself.
No, I think it's an absolute. It's a farce, and it's making a mockery of not just. It's not just making a mockery of women's right to have their own spaces. It's making a mockery of genuine trans people who actually put some effort in and look like a woman.
What do you mean a genuine trans
And also,
people?
if
We don't believe in that.
No, if your name was Roxanne, if you were going to transition, you wouldn't pick the name Roxanne Tickle.
What?
You choose Tess.
Tess. That's a kind of name. No, the truth is that's one of the problems, is you get a choice in the name you're going to choose. And of course, you're going to choose like a hot Roxanne. That's a hot Roxanne. That's a great name. They're not going to choose.
You don't think
Louis.
Tess would work better with Tickle?
GB News, the People's Channel.
we're going to go through the football last night. It was Champions League, and Aston Villa were in Monaco, and so was Prince William.
Prince William was there. Do you reckon...
He's not a fair weather fan, remember?
Well,
that's what they said in Wetherspoons.
They said it, yes. Well, I mean, if you're travelling to... But then again, would you say he's really hardcore if you go to Monte Carlo?
No, I'd say no.
Do you reckon to know he's Prince Albert? He must do, mustn't he?
Must do.
Go and see his mate Prince Albert.
Yeah, go over there, see him. Because, like you said, but when we were just talking off air just now, is that he was in London, wasn't he?
I think I saw him on media at an appointment at a charity yesterday afternoon, but.
So then he's like, got to catch the red eye to Monaco, got to get over there. Villa are playing.
Yeah.
So it was Monaco 1, Aston Villa 0. By the way, there was a tweet. Can we have a look at this tweet by this French person? Hold on, I'm going to have to do my translation. It says, say what you think about the probability is in a lifetime of coming face-to-face with Prince William, just a few centimetres away from him. I admit I can't get over it.
Oh.
There we are. Isn't that lovely? And there he is. Look, she's just sitting behind.
I always think you sound like you're in the Pink Panther when you do your...
Well, you know, at least the country's right, so that's
here's
OK.
What I want to know, right? He can do that in a French accent and everybody laughs at that. But if you did that in an Indian accent or a Chinese accent, you'd be racist twice.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will certainly not be.
You do it in an Irish accent, everybody would laugh.
Well, if I did it in an Irish accent, you'd probably punch me full in the face, wouldn't you? So I wouldn't even dare do that. I wouldn't dare do it.
You do a very good accent. Very good.
I'd be in big trouble.
Liverpool, because of this system, it's not an aggregate score, it's a league that they're in. Liverpool looking good to be in the last 16.
Well, they've been... See, this is another pronunciation thing. Whenever I say the French club, it sounds like it's my old auntie, Lille. Was he Lille? How would you pronounce Lille?
Well, I know, but I'd say Lille. But
Lille, so that sounds better. And I'm just thinking Lille.
That's good. Why do you say it properly?
Lille.
Lille.
Yeah, you say it properly.
Yeah.
I say Lille, same as you.
I say Lille.
Lille.
Anyway, Liverpool beat Lille. Good old Lille. 7-7 for Liverpool. They really are. They're looking so good. But the thing is, it wasn't totally convincing, but they did what they had to do in this. But now, where they are in this Champions League at the moment, because it's from 1 to 36, 24 to 36 are eliminated, 1 to 8 qualify immediately, so they've qualified either first or second, which means that if you're first or second, that you will not play each other in the final, although that's a little way to go. But anyway, Liverpool very good last night. We've got... do you want to see Arna? Should we have a little Arna slot? What do you think?
What, 30
no, we haven't got any time.
OK, don't worry about Arna. Sorry, Arna.
Tonight in the Champions League...
Arsenal will play Dinamo Zagreb. So Arsenal are 5th. They're in that qualifying place. Celtic against Young Boys, who are last. So they're done. There's no chance of them moving on. And PSG, Paris Saint-Germain, will play Manchester City tonight in Paris.
Do they all have chances? City have a chance, Arsenal have a chance?
Well, look, City and PSG are 26th. Man City are 24th, which means the best that they can probably do is just go into the knockout round, which happens in February. But it also means that Liverpool could end up playing Manchester City because high plays low. It's very complicated.
Just what happened to the good old European Cup? You know?
I know, but it is kind of working. I don't mind this. Okay. It's complicated, but it's because I don't understand it. That's why I like it so much, bro.
OK, my friend, got to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Here is the weather forecast.
Yeah.
And these are the good places in Europe.
Yeah,
these are the good places that you want to go to.
European holiday destinations.
For weather.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The sunshine will be returning to Cyprus, but still a few showers around for the next day or so. Much of mainland Greece fine and sunny. There are the showers across Cyprus. They'll be clearing, as should the showers over Turkey as well. But remaining pretty mixed, quite cloudy over the Balkans, with a few showers in here and for northern Italy. It's been quite wet recently in southern Spain. More wet weather to come here on Thursday, and more showers to come across the Canaries. But it should be turning sunnier in Tenerife for the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Now, we have got Nikki Hodgson, we've got Claire Muldoon, they have got the newspapers, and they're with those for you next.
GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Lisa, you got in touch with me and you flagged this survey because you were concerned as a parent that your child had been given this to fill out.
Yeah, I mean, my daughter came home from school. She was very confused. She was asking why somebody would want to hurt themselves if they were feeling sad or worried about something. So that led to a conversation that we had, and I actually phoned the school and asked them to send me the survey, which with a lot of pushing, they eventually did send me the survey. And when I read through it, I was just completely shocked at the content. The survey says when I'm feeling worried that maybe I should try cutting or harming myself, because it's in the survey, so that must be an option. I've tried everything else, so why not try this?
It is astonishing that some of these are young children who are perhaps being introduced to these, these abuses for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a list of 17 different types of drugs, some of which I've actually never heard of myself. I mean, the wording on here is, have you ever got high from taking drugs? I mean...
And we know that some of these behaviours, self-harm, gender dysphoria, taking drugs, are psychologically contagious. Children do them because they see other children do them, or they find out about them from the internet or from surveys like this. So the idea that this is just information gathering and won't go any further than that is ridiculous. There was a similar survey in Scotland, I think, about 3 years ago, where children the same age, 11, 12, 13, were asked about their sex lives. How many times have you had sex in the last year? How did you have sex? Did you use contraception? Totally normalising underage sex. So the idea that children are just mini adults and we can confront them with all the same kind of ideas and dilemmas that adults have to face is just ridiculous.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
We're delighted to welcome Nikki Hodgson and Claire Muldoon, who've got their hands on the papers today. Very good seeing you guys. And Claire, the first thing you want to highlight is this character, Axel Rudacabana, and where he got his killing knife from.
Right, so he got it from Amazon. Right, it really shouldn't be front page news because, let me just tell you, I've done some research into this, and the Ben Kinsella Trust that's set up because of the death, obviously, of Ben Kinsella in 2018 with a knife, nothing's been done. The statistics for the year end to March 2023, 82% of teenage homicide victims were caused with a knife. That was up 73% in the previous year. This is incredible. We have known about this. There's new knife crime statistics that will be released by the government in January the 30th in a few days' time. What on earth are they going to see? Why are we so surprised? We have been telling everybody, we've been speaking about this for a few years now. Knife crime is rampant. Sadiq Khan's not doing anything about it in London, and we really need to get a grip of this.
When you take away the personal touch, if you go to a shop and you would ask for the same thing, then there would be a barrier put up, but there's not. You can do it impersonally on the post. I remember being a kid, primary school, and summer holidays came, and we all had this craze about getting pen knives. You weren't allowed them. You couldn't. Every time we went to a shop, you were told no, you couldn't have that type thing. But here, this guy he was 16 when he got this murder weapon.
Yeah. And the other thing is that if you go, only a few months ago we were talking about how these kinds of knives are advertised on TikTok to children. There's got to be very few instances where somebody actually needs a specific kind of knife,
Yeah.
apart from certain fishing and certain kind of
Yeah.
labour. And I think maybe there's a licensing thing there. But, you know, there's also another issue here that hasn't been talked about at all, actually, in the coverage this week about Southport, which is actually his mental health condition. And the reason I raise that is not as a kind of getting him out of jail. You know, it's that he was very, very ill and was let down by multiple authorities and people working together that didn't recognise that he was a paranoid schizophrenic that was able to
None of that is down to the fact he used a knife and slaughtered.
No,
girls,
but what I'm saying is,
and that should not be an excuse.
I'm not saying it for that, Claire. What I mean is there were many years of records of his behaviour and state of mind deteriorating, you know, and at the point at which he bought the knife, when somebody found it, that should have been an absolute red flag in terms of locking him up.
I
or
think
getting him
anyone
help.
that buys a knife like that, you only should really need them if you are a professional chef.
I agree.
If you work with them in your own home, but we need to attack and address the situation that young males are getting their hands on these and they're using them as a badge of honour. That's what needs to stop.
And you would think this would be a simple fix. Age verification on websites and also an algorithm that comes up if you are buying the ingredients for ricin and knives online. If one person is buying all of that, it can't
being
be for
sent to
good
the same
reason.
address.
Yeah, it can't
Flag,
be for a good
flag,
reason.
flag.
And it should be, shouldn't it?
Nikki, the Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex court case, which began yesterday, he's suing the Sun for tracking him and various things like that. It's been reported today, which surprises me, that he's very close to a settlement in all of this, which strikes me that this is going to just end up as a money deal.
Well, and the costs are absolutely huge already, you know, from months and months.
But did they illegally follow him, tap his phone or not? That's what I am more interested in.
I think that's what the public wants to know. But I think the problem is that, you know, they've already paid the Sun, the holding company, the public company, the publishing company has already paid out lots and lots of money to settle the same kind of accusations, right? Which doesn't mean guilt, obviously, it's just a settlement. And I don't understand how he's got the money to carry on fighting past a point, because he hasn't made any money recently, has he? I mean, the thing about this with Harry is that there's a psychological drive here with him to seek justice that's also tied to his mum. What he needs to do is really go to therapy, even though, I mean, we see him and Meghan talking therapies all the time. There's a deeper thing in him that is driving this.
He's made it his life's mission, hasn't he?
Yeah, and I understand why, but my point is the courts aren't going to see it like that. And past a point, the judges just said, you're just spending way too much money, both parts. There's no point.
I wonder if this is an olive branch with his family, because his father specifically and the late Queen never wanted this to go to court. They don't want their dirty laundry to be aired. Do not explain, do not complain. That's what the late Queen was known for. I wonder if that's perhaps him trying to
send out an olive branch. That might be one for you, Ellie. And indeed, it might be a very generous one, but I don't think that the chap's capable of that.
You see,
I really don't.
The terrible thing is, these newspapers do this.
Of course they do.
They use paparazzi and freelance agencies who will track you, who will tape you, who will do this, and then they sell the story to the newspapers. So if the newspapers are caught on with it, they go, hey, wasn't us, we bought this of Nikki Hodgson, so it must be her, she must be the blame.
It's just a chain, isn't it? They're very clever at hiding the source in order to not be prosecuted. And, you know, nothing's changed since Leveson. Nothing's changed.
No.
All the phone hacking that we talked about then, it's still rife, it still exists, it's endemic. I don't think he's going to be able to prove it very easily, and it's going to cost so much money. It's maybe he just decided, OK, well, maybe it's time to leave it.
OK.
Let's have a look at Sir Sadiq Khan. We need to get used to that. He is leading the rebellion against a third runway at Heathrow.
Of course he is. I mean, it's just ridiculous. He does, doesn't he?
Yeah, how on earth do you have economic growth in somewhere like London? There are 2 runways at Heathrow.
Not enough.
One of the biggest international airports in the whole world. How stupid. How stupid.
Exactly, I concur completely. 600 billion worth of infrastructure there that needs to be done in order to bring in trade to this country. Rachel Reeves went over to China, secured 600 million. That's a piddly amount, an absolute drop in the ocean. She's now off to Davos, where she obviously had to fly there. Yeah. I mean, come on, we really need this
but
third
also,
runway.
Claire, these airplanes, in 10 years, they'll be flying on water drops or honey or something like that. So it'll not be the same pollution aspect to all of this.
Exactly. And I'm such a strong proponent of that. And I do live in West London, so it will affect me in terms of noise and pollution. If they say that, I don't care. We need that third runway. We need Gatwick to expand. We need Luton to expand. It's still cheaper to fly up to Newcastle and Glasgow from London than it is to take the train. The train that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, it's more expensive to fly from London to Newcastle, to Aberdeen, to Glasgow, to Belfast, than it is to fly to anywhere in Europe as well.
That's true.
And somebody needs to look at the internal pricing market within this country, what these airlines get away with. Absolutely. And I speak obviously as someone, as you would be, using Glasgow and Belfast as I would. Absolutely scandalous.
Claire, we've got 1 minute. So let's talk about dog owners. They're not always happier and healthier.
Are you a dog owner?
Oh, I'm not. I'm a big enough bitch.
She might be happier than you.
Well, they are. Everyone says, oh, get a pet. It's so good for your mental health. It's so good for this and that. It costs you money.
It does.
It really
and a
does.
lot of effort and time.
A lot of effort.
The money isn't that, Claire, because I've got a mini Dachshund who I absolutely adore. But just recently, he's become incredibly barky. I mean, they're barky anyway. But just, I can't sit down and watch telly, anything. Brings me a toy, brings me a cushion, barks in my face. And I'm going to have to do some more behavioural work with him. And it is so stressful, I'll be honest.
It's so annoying.
I adore him, but I have to put some more effort in now.
No, but
it's a bit of a nightmare at the minute.
You might be very lucky. I just have the best dog in the whole world. I do. I could talk to her. She loves me. If she was a human being, I would marry her. Guys, speak again later. Let's go to Alex Deacon for the weather update.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office. Here on GB News, a chilly one again today. A few fog patches again in places this morning, but much of the country will have a dry afternoon. A bit damp and drizzly in some places, certainly along the south coast, some patchy rain also across parts of northeast England, and a few showers further west. But overall, much drier day for northwest England and some good spells of sunshine coming out across parts of eastern Scotland, and mostly dry and fine for Northern Ireland, South Wales and southwest England too. A little bit more of that rain just trickling along the south coast. May see some in London, but it'll be fairly light. Most of the day dry. Temperatures, though, even where we've got some sunshine, only 5 or 6 degrees Celsius. And for some, it'll just stay misty and murky all day. A little bit of that rain across the southeast, so affecting Kent into the evening rush hour. Again, nothing too heavy, but just a bit damp and drizzly here. Clearer skies further west, just a few showers coming in off the Irish Sea, and 1 or 2 showers into western Scotland too. Much of central and eastern Scotland dry and clear and pretty quickly again. Those temperatures will be back down below freezing. We'll see another touch of frost forming where we've got the clear skies. Staying pretty cloudy though across East Anglia in the southeast well into the evening. Eventually here that cloud should tend to break up. A few mist and fog patches are possible, but for many it'll be a largely dry and largely clear night, which will allow it to turn a bit colder perhaps than last night, certainly across a good chunk of England and Wales. Any rural spots getting pretty close to freezing. But further west, notice there's a line of rain moving in. That won't take long before it zips across Northern Ireland. A soggy start here tomorrow. And it doesn't stop there. It moves in across the rest of the UK as well. Hitting the colder air, it will provide some snow over the hills of northern England and Scotland for a time during Thursday. That system clears away, but then eyes out in the Atlantic as a storm comes moving in for Friday. Storm Eamonn is going to bring us some problems, and there are Met Office warnings in place. Stay tuned.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In North Yorkshire, the A64 is closed in both directions between High Hutton and the Welburn turnoff.
the stretch between Scarborough and York after an accident. In Staffordshire, the A50 is closed each way along Waterloo Road at Burslem in Stoke-on-Trent after a fire yesterday afternoon. In London, the A598 Finchley Road is closed southbound off the A1 at Henleys Corner after an accident, and the A212 is closed along Church Road in Upper Norwood because of a fire at a block of flats. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking half an hour in queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. Gatwick Express train services aren't running again today because of a signalling problem, with some cancelled Southern and Thameslink services, and South Eastern services running out of Victoria to Shortlands via Beckenham Junction, not diverting via Catford because of a faulty rail. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
There's just good luck.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Good morning. Claims the police were gagged from releasing information on the Southport murderer.
Devastating details are emerging about how Axel Rudakabana slipped through the cracks.
And despite the fact that he'd been convicted for violence and was just 17, he was easily able to order a knife on Amazon. That's a total disgrace, and it must change.
Leaving many people asking whether the anti-terrorism programme PREVENT is fit for purpose.
The PREVENT practitioner who took that call then did not decide when filling out the form about risk, ideology, that it should be passed to Channel. So unfortunately, I think this is a very localised failing.
But is a public inquiry enough to bring justice to the families of the 3 young girls who died?
The Chancellor mingles with the economic elite at Davos as her blitz to bag British business continues.
But one business leader condemns the government and declares it's never been harder for entrepreneurs. We'll be debating whether it's now too difficult to do business in the UK. Let us know what you think.
Cracking down on fraud, benefit cheats could now be stripped of their driving licences under new plans. We'll be speaking to the Minister of Employment, Alison McGovern, at 9.
Getting straight down to work, Donald Trump put in the world on notice with fresh tariff threats and a message for the EU.
China's an abuser, but the European Union is very, very bad to us. They treat us very, very badly.
And in the sport this morning, in the Champions League, Liverpool kept their 7th win in 7 games. Still work to do, though, for Aston Villa as they lose in Monaco in front of Prince William. And the Manchester United cost-cutting has now reached their legends.
A bit of fog around today. Many places will be dry. The winds are light at the moment, but a storm system is coming in for Friday. Stay tuned for a full update.
Hello there, very good to see you on this Wednesday morning. Good morning from me, Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast with Eamonn and Ellie.
Sources are claiming the police were gagged by the Crown Prosecution Service and warned to hold back from releasing vital information about Southport killer Axel Rudakabana.
Well, this comes as the Prime Minister has revealed plans to redefine terror in the wake of the Southport attacks, despite warnings it could overwhelm the police and security service.
Axel Rudakabana was referred to the government's counter-terrorism prevent programme 3 times, but each time it was decided it was inappropriate for him to join.
Well, last night, GB News spoke to former Prevent practitioner and former counter-extremism coordinator about why Prevent didn't pick this up.
I believe that this is an incompetence, yes. And I believe that the incompetence around clashing ideologies, colliding ideologies is quite broad. And we're seeing young men in particular alone in front of the computer, not being radicalised into any particular ideology, but just being fascinated by violence. And where do we put that? Where does that land? I think it should land, in this case, definitely with Prevent. But sometimes the ideology is really unclear. Well, how come Child Services with 4 or 5 phone calls didn't pick this up? Maybe there needs to be more on people who are just fascinated with violence.
Well, we're joined now by former senior military intelligence officer. We say good morning to Philip Ingram, friend of the programme.
Good morning.
Philip, what do you make of Rudakabana and, you know, what he was able to avoid and the sort of person that he was?
Well, it's clearly that he was motivated by violence the whole way through, and he's got a long history of it. And, you know, unfortunately, I think this is the failing of human beings in analysing the threat, what influenced them, whether it was race, skin colour, or just incompetence within organisations through individuals or through lack of funding. We don't know, and this is where we need our inquiry to bring the details out so that this can't happen again. You know, there's a lot of incorrect information is being talked about, the reasoning behind it. You know, terrorism, this falls into the 2000 Act, the Terrorism Act 2000's definition of terrorism. If you look at it in its broadest sense, you know, Neil Bassau, the former head of counter-terrorism in the UK, has said this methodology has been known for 8 or 9 years. So you know, the Prime Minister seems to be throwing out rabbit holes for people to run down, and it suggests that he's trying to hide something.
Yeah, and, you know, a lot's been made of, you know, Prevent not taking him on. And yet I look at this guy and he wouldn't necessarily fit the criteria that they have. I mean, they've got every right to turn him down and say, no, he's not for us to deal with. We deal with more radicalised people in this. I mean, Rudakabana was, at the end of the day, he was sick, he was mentally deranged as well, and he was a complete horrible little twisted runt. And basically, that doesn't make him a terrorist, though, does it?
Well, this is where the definition, I agree with the Prime Minister, needs to be tightened up. Because it turns around and says that specific actions include serious violence against a person, violence against property, but it all ties it to a cause. However, the bit in the Terrorism Act that says that I read that he falls into says that planning, assisting, or even collecting information as to how to commit a terrorist act falls into the category. Now, you only know the motivation behind an attack after the attack has happened, after the individual has been arrested. So whenever you're doing everything running up to it, you have to assume that there is some wider form of motivation that you haven't got. So you deal with it as if it's potential terrorism. And this is where Prevent has failed. Now, Prevent isn't a compulsory programme. It's not something that is run by the counter-terror police. There are Prevent coordinators in different areas that are coordinating information that's coming from schools, from doctors, from other community leaders. And the individual that is then subject to Prevent can decide whether they want to go into the channel programme or not. You know, he could have been asked, and again, we don't know this, he could have been asked whether he wanted to go into it and said no. And there's nothing you can do to compel him to do that. That should have triggered things being reported into other agencies. But we know all the other agencies, and especially in Wales, are very, very short of funding and capability. Mental health hasn't picked him up. Other local community agencies haven't picked him up. And this is where it would be better if there's some form of national oversight in looking at this from what is the damage that an individual could potentially cause before you then label something with motivation.
What did you make of the Prime Minister yesterday talking about this new terrorism threat that we are facing? These perpetrators are loners and misfits, because that is going to be very difficult moving forward to try and police and control when we're talking about individuals that aren't operating as part of a wider organisation or part of a cell, but they're just alone plotting in their bedrooms.
Well, a large proportion of the terrorist attacks that have happened in recent years in the UK have been that. Neil Bassow, who headed counter-terrorism police in the UK, who's a friend and a very, very respected colleague, said that this methodology has been known for at least 8 or 9 years. Self-motivated individuals, whether they're being motivated by extreme right-wing, extreme left-wing, by ISIS, by Al-Qaeda, or just they want to go out and commit violent acts. It doesn't matter. The output's the same. Innocent people die, and you only know what the motivation is once you carry out a police investigation and you're trying to bring charges afterwards. These people will be flagged up. This individual has accessed terror sites online to get his terror manual. He's accessed terror sites online to learn how to make ricin. He will have been flagged up in lots of different areas, and something hasn't brought all of this together to say we've got a potential terrorist here that we need to monitor and we need to keep our eyes on. And the result is the deaths of 3 innocent, lovely little girls and the injury of a large number of others. The Prime Minister is, he's being his typical lawyer self in trying to, put rice paper in between cracks to try and protect what he did or didn't say at the time.
OK, Philip, really appreciate your take on things. We've got to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Philip Ingrams.
Thank you.
Let's get more on this and other political stories of the day. The political editor of The Spectator, Katie Balls, we'll say good morning to her. Katie, what do you think the fallout is on this Axel Rudakabana situation and this inquiry going forward?
Well, I think there's the question of what answers are we going to get from the inquiry. You saw Keir Starmer really trying to get on the front foot as soon as the guilty plea came out on Monday. And I think you think about the grooming gang scandal and how Keir Starmer has been, faced all these demands for a public inquiry, went a little bit there, but not all the way. Smaller inquiries. I think that there's been a big effort in Downing Street to try and show that he has a control over the situation. But as we've just been hearing from the previous interview, there's lots of questions, I think, about his handling of it and also how you respond to individuals, quite hard to track down. And then I think there's the question of Keir Starmer and his own messaging, because if you go back to the summer riots, the Southport riots, he is facing, I think, scepticism from parts of the country, broadly about whether, two-tier Keir and so forth, and whether he treats things differently depending on, which side of ideology they come from. And that's something that I think his team are quite aware on, which is why they've almost gone so hard in their rhetoric since the plea has come through.
Looking at another politics story today, and benefit cheats could be banned from driving. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so this is part of the government's attempt to crack down, but also deal with the welfare bill. The welfare bill, of course, is absolutely huge at the moment. And if you're thinking about ways to get growth, but also just to have a healthy economy, the view of the Chancellor is it's too big, things have to be done. A lot of the time it's thinking about ways to incentivize people back to work. But this is looking at, do you have people, run up debts on benefits over, to a couple of thousand? If there is proof of this, if they've been, misusing the system, they could start to use the stick rather than the carrot and mean that they were, had their driving license suspended and so forth. I think that a disincentive can be as effective as an incentive when it comes to dealing with misuse of the system. It's obviously just going to be making sure that you have the information. And some of this requires the banks sharing information. And there's already some kickback where there's intrusion into personal liberty and so forth.
OK. This economic forum going on in Davos, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, she's out there, she's trying to drum up some sort of business for Britain. Now, very shortly, we're going to be debating, is it actually just too difficult to set up a business, to do business in the UK? Who do you think would want to come here? How easy is it to attract foreign investors?
Well, at the moment, it's quite hard to attract foreign investors because, I think the UK is slowly becoming more uncompetitive. I think it happened under the Tories. We think about the tax burden reaching, post-war high. But the recent Labour budget and the employer national insurance rise has seen businesses take fright combined with the workers' rights package, strengthening workers' rights. You take it all together, and the truth is lots of businesses are looking abroad and thinking there's more competitive regimes they can go to. So what is Rachel Reeves' message? Her message is we are the stability country. We have a large majority, so the Labour government can make decisions and stick to them. But I think undermining that slightly is the fact that she has taken various tax or spending cuts decisions that she didn't talk about in advance. So the stability premium, I think, is not working quite in the way Labour envisaged when they first entered office.
Okay, Katie Bowles, we'll leave it there. Katie's the political editor at The Spectator. Thank you very much indeed.
Our poll of the day today is, has the handling of the Southport murders damaged your trust in our legal system? Let us know what you think. You can scan the QR code on the screen now, or you can go to gbnews.com/poll. And the final results, as always, will be announced later in Martin Daubney's show.
Right. Time's running out, we should say. If you want to get your hands on our incredible £50,000 in the Great British Giveaway. Sounds too good to be true? Not on your Ellie. Have a look at this.
Imagine how £50,000 in cash from us could make your new year go with a bang.
Hi, my name's Victoria.
At exactly 7:15, let's have a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom.
Some breaking news in the past few minutes. A 14-year-old boy has been arrested on suspicion of murder following the fatal stabbing of a 12-year-old in Birmingham. The victim was taken to hospital shortly after 3 p.m. yesterday, but later died from his injuries. West Midlands Police are appealing for further information.
At least 76 people have been killed in a fire that engulfed a popular Turkish ski resort. 51 others have been injured by the blaze. It was at the Grand Cartel Hotel. 4 people have since been arrested, including the hotel's owner.
The Met Office has put in place a yellow weather warning for the weekend as Storm Ewan heads towards Britain. Heavy rainfall and winds of up to 80 miles per hour are expected, with predictions of power cuts and travel delays.
Oh, listen, you've been so good. Just want to find time to reflect what you're saying today. Now, yesterday on the programme, Ellie was complaining about the fog.
I never complain.
Well, you were...
I was explaining.
She was explaining there was fog that was getting on her nerves, and she was driving through it. But then I asked her, did she put her fog lights on? And Ellie confessed She didn't know how to.
I don't know where they are.
Doesn't know where they are,
No.
where fog lights are. So, so this is Seaside Lauren says, we all need to know where they are. And we need to know if Ellie found the fog lights in her car. We can't have her driving around in the middle of the night in heavy fog. So there's a lot of concern about you. Did you find them?
I'm concerned about myself. No, it remains a mystery, but you just told me.
The fog went away.
No, the fog's very much here. Didn't you see it this morning?
No.
Oh, it's very bad.
Oh. Well, your fog lights, I mean, certainly in my car, there's a dial for your side lights and for your main lights down at where your right hand is. And if you pull it out towards you, then your fog lights go on. And you know your fog light's on because there's a yellow light comes on.
See, I wouldn't even know that. I'll practice this afternoon. I'll let you know.
So side lights, main lights, and then pull out.
Honestly.
And fog light.
The car is a mystery to me. I don't know how I've been driving for 10 years. I even have to drive on my steering wheel like this, so I know my lefts and my rights are, because it still hasn't been engraved into my brain. I still have to do this. Left.
And you do have a driving licence, yes?
I do, and I don't know how. It's a miracle. genuinely. But no, Lauren. But I'm gonna find out where the fog button is. Don't worry. Talking about buttons, Mark's been in touch saying we were talking about in President Trump's office. He's got a button for Diet Coke.
And it's on his desk.
On his desk, and he just presses it, and a Diet Coke arrives.
Appears with ice cubes and loveliness.
Lemon. Yeah. But Mark says, what if Trump presses the button for a Diet Coke and presses the wrong button?
Well, we don't want that.
The nuclear button. We don't want that.
Right, let's see how nuclear the weather's going to be. It's going to be bad come the weekend. Alex Deacon with the build-up.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office. Here on GB News, a chilly one again today. A few fog patches again in places this morning, but much of the country will have a dry afternoon. A bit damp and drizzly in some places, certainly along the south coast, some patchy rain also across parts of northeast England, and a few showers further west. But overall, much drier day for northwest England and some good spells of sunshine coming out across parts of eastern Scotland, and mostly dry and fine for Northern Ireland, South Wales and southwest England too. A little bit more of that rain just trickling along the south coast. May see some in London, but it'll be fairly light. Most of the day dry. Temperatures, though, even where we've got some sunshine, only 5 or 6 degrees Celsius. And for some, it'll just stay misty and murky all day. A little bit of that rain across the southeast, so affecting Kent into the evening rush hour. Again, nothing too heavy, but just a bit damp and drizzly here. Clearer skies further west. Just a few showers coming in off the Irish Sea, and 1 or 2 showers into western Scotland too. Much of central and eastern Scotland dry and clear, and pretty quickly again those temperatures will be back down below freezing. We'll see another touch of frost forming where we've got the clear skies. Staying pretty cloudy though across East Anglia in the southeast well into the evening. Eventually here that cloud should tend to break up. A few mist and fog patches are possible, but for many it'll be a largely dry and largely clear night, which will allow it to turn a bit colder perhaps than last night, certainly across a good chunk of England and Wales. Any rural spots getting pretty close to freezing. But further west, notice there's a line of rain moving in. That won't take long before it zips across Northern Ireland. A soggy start here tomorrow. And it doesn't stop there. It moves in across the rest of the UK as well. Hitting the colder air, it will provide some snow over the hills of northern England and Scotland for a time during Thursday. That system clears away, but then eyes out in the Atlantic as a storm comes moving in for Friday. Storm Eamonn is going to bring us some problems, and there are Met Office warnings in place. Stay tuned.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, the man that has the Brewdog Foundry, is that what it's called?
No, Brewdog beer. Yeah, he's got like
Brewdog.
Like pubs, yeah, Brewdog, yeah.
Yes.
James Watt, yeah, he's the founder. He's been, he talks a lot, doesn't he? He gets in the headlines a lot. But he has said now that there's never been a tougher time to start a business in the UK. So we thought we'd debate it this morning. Is it too difficult to do business in the UK? We'll be talking about that next.
Well, I know as soon as you...
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
First, mate, we had lockdowns. Then we had soaring energy costs. Then we had a hike in national insurance for employers. Then we had soaring wage costs. And now the government expects people like you to monitor what people say in boozers. And if you don't, you might get sued. I bet you feel like saying cheers to them, don't you?
Look, it just looks like another war on pubs. You know, remember they tried to stop smoking outside as well. Luckily, they rethought that. But look, we've got everything stacked against us, Martin. And the last thing I need to do is go and get in people's conversations. At the end of the day, a pub is like an extension to your home. You know, it's a public house. Friends go to speak. Friends go to meet, unwind after work. It's none of my business what you're talking about. Any good publican, and myself included, anyone that was rude to anyone or on purpose, they want to offend people or they want to dig people out, antagonise them, of course I'm going to step in and say, behave yourself or you go. But look, how can I be on social media talking about everything, transgender, immigration, and people not be allowed to do that at the bar or do that at the table of a pub? It's ridiculous. And these ministers really do need to sort of look at this legislation and see where it could lead, because I'm not going to stop anyone speaking in my pub. Again, if they're trying to antagonise people or they're rude or trying to start trouble, they get thrown out the front door, and any publican worth their salt is going to do that as well. But we're not there to police people's conversations.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Breakfast. Now, do you own a business? Well, we don't, but you might. If so, is it harder than ever?
You do. If you're self-employed, you're a business.
Oh, well, you're a business then.
And I'm just going to say that it is really, really difficult. Really, really difficult to do anything. Your bureaucracy, the form filling, the tax codes, everything to do it. It just is so hard. So I do believe it is very difficult to set up a business, and I admire anybody who does do it.
Well, the Brewdog founder, James Watt, has been talking about all of this. He says there's never been a more difficult time to start a business in the UK, and he's actually pointed the finger of blame at the Chancellor's budget. He says it's created more problems for entrepreneurs and has even announced plans for a new reality show with the largest ever cash prize in UK TV history in order to help one lucky person grow their business. He says they need that support in order to grow.
Well, is it too hard to do business in Britain? We were to debate this, but I think we've only got one debater. So
yeah, we've got Chris with us.
We've got Chris Worrell. Chris, you think it isn't hard?
Well, it isn't hard to realise that doomsters are going to doomster. Some people who, want to miss the positive sentiments in the economy because they're just negative, that's fine, or they've got their opinions on the politics.
Do you run a business, Chris?
Yeah, I do.
What do you do?
Director.
What?
Well, I'm an investment director. That's my day job.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, is that the answer to that question? Yeah, sorry. So I'll carry on. I mean, we've seen this government with a commitment to pro-growth at the end of the day, and the changes that have been made and put in place, particularly around planning reform and others, are positive. You know, we're seeing billions of pounds being invested in the UK. We've seen that FTSE 100 at record levels. We're seeing, you know, while we've had global bond yields rise around the world, the UK actually has a forecast for stability in its debt as a percentage of its economy. So, you know, what we're seeing here is people kind of just noise coming out, but not actually focusing on what's happening. I mean, if you're looking at the construction sector, for example, you know, this year is poised to be a sort of boom in the construction sector. We've got billions of pounds worth of projects, whether it's in solar farms, wind farms, you know, gigafactories and other likes. You've got hotel and leisure. It's going to be increasing about 6% this year in terms of office refurbs, brown to green office refurbs. There's a number of things that are being put in place. The Labour Party has been putting in place an office for investment, as well as looking at an office of value for money. So they're not just looking at you know, ways in which government, the private sector can just invest, but how to save money within government too. So I think the outlook at the moment is 70% of businesses are expected their turnovers to rise in 2025. We've also seen, I believe, some sort of records in retail, particularly towards the end of last year, where Ocado and others are posting record profits. So when we are talking about tax rises and we did see the sort of big retail or the British Retail Consortium, you know, moaning about some of these tax rises a bit recently, but they're one of the ones that are making the profits that can actually pay some of these taxes and paying their employees tax shares as required.
OK, Chris, thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know. There's a lot of high net worth individuals that are moving abroad, moving their businesses abroad now, and they would blame the tax raise under Labour. And then Santander, even yesterday, the Spanish bank was looking at other options. They are going to stay in the UK, but looking at other options because it is, they say, hard to do business here.
Well, the tax situation wasn't that much better under the last lot. I mean, this country is addicted to tax, high tax, and it's the indirect taxes, it's the taxes. I mean, you pay your PAYE, right? Your income tax. Then you've got national insurance. What's that all about?
That's
national insurance.
Tax,
it's not a different tax. It doesn't go anywhere. It all goes into the same pot.
Yeah.
You know, so if it was for my health care and whatever, I could understand that, but it doesn't. So it's all should all be called income tax. And then there is value-added tax. What the sweet Lord is, what value are you getting? So if I buy something and they're saying, well, you're going to have to pay 20% value-added tax on that. What a con. And then you go through, there's so many other taxes on it. It's just a con. You'd be better off just saying, folks, we're giving you a tax bracket of 50%. Everybody's taxed 50%. Then you could understand it.
Wouldn't be fair, though, would it? Everyone 50%?
I think it really is scandalous. I do think how this country feeds off taxes, how it needs taxes, and no wonder people really don't feel they're ever getting on. But that's just my view.
Well, let us know yours. gbnews.com/your say. They do say there's two guarantees in life.
Which are?
Taxes and death.
There we go. Paul Coyte, he's guaranteed up next, and he's going to be talking about what happened in the Champions League tonight and what should happen, or what happened last night, what should happen tonight.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In North Yorkshire, the A64 is closed each way between the Barton Hill Crossroads and the Old Malton Roundabout after an accident early this morning, affecting traffic each way between Scarborough and York. On the M60 in Greater Manchester, the outside lanes closed anti-clockwise after an accident between junctions 18 and 17 from Sinister Island to Prestwich, causing queues from junction 19 at Haywood. Now, there are a couple of problems in Staffordshire. The A50 is closed each way along Waterloo Road at Burslem in Stoke-on-Trent after a fire yesterday afternoon, and the A50 partly blocked westbound by an accident just after the A522 at Uttoxeter, causing delays. In London, Finchley Road is closed southbound off the A1 at Henley's Corner after an accident, and the M25 from Essex into Kent is blocked clockwise where a van's broken down on the QE2 bridge, causing queues.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Liverpool, last 16 of the Champions League, more or less guaranteed. Paul Coit with that.
Yeah, there's 8 games in this first stage, where there's 36 teams. The first 8 will go through into the last 16. Then the ones below them, which is 9 to 24, will then have to go into a playoff, which happens next month. So everybody's wanting to avoid that. Liverpool are guaranteed either first or second, which is good. They beat Lille.
I'm going to sleep now.
No, come on now. Look, I'm trying my best here.
You're doing
to
great,
make it
Coity.
Thank you, Ellie.
Don't be rude.
But we used to have, a knockout thing in the European Cup.
Yes.
That's what it used to be. But all of these things is just about generating money. That's what it's about.
True. It is true, but it's better now than it was before when they had the leagues, honestly. So anyway, Liverpool either first or second, which means they're guaranteed, they're fine. And if you're either first or second, you can only meet in the final. And also it goes for third and fourth as well. If you're third and fourth, you can only meet anybody in that 4 in the semi-final. How's that? Is that more exciting?
So where does that leave Aston Villa, who lost 1-0 last night?
Aston Villa at the moment are 8th. Now, they need to be in that top 8, and they've got to play Celtic next.
Do they?
They've got Celtic.
Oh,
now you're interested.
Mind you, they've got Rangers in one of these European competitions on Thursday night.
That's right. Yeah. That's correct. So anyway, let's hear from Arne Slot, Liverpool manager. Very happy, although he kind of discusses whether it's actually good coming first or second or not. Here's Arne.
In tennis, you are number 1 seeded. You know it's always better to face the number 24 than to face the number 8 or the number 12. Because this is a ranking that is done for years. But now we are in a new format where some teams are high in the league table because they had a lucky draw, or some teams are low because they had a very difficult draw. So it's far off to say that it's an advantage to be 1 or 2. We still don't know yet if that's an advantage or not. You might be lucky, you might be very unlucky, and ending up 8 can mean that you are maybe lucky. So for me, it doesn't tell me anything. What for me is the most important thing for tonight is that we've managed to skip around.
There you go. That makes perfect sense now, doesn't it? It's like a maths lesson. So they could draw, actually, Manchester City, who are way down. So you'd think the advantage, if you're doing really well, you play someone lower. But Manchester City, who are lower, they could end up playing them.
Give me a ring when it's all sorted out, Paul.
OK, listen, I'll pass it on to you.
So
I'll
City
just
have
keep
got
you updated.
PSG tonight. Arsenal have got Dynamo Zagreb. Celtic against Young Boys.
Young Boys of Bern, who are bottom, and they're going nowhere.
And you said they're finished, yeah?
They're finished in this competition. Sorry, but that's how it is.
Should we look at tennis? Yeah.
Novak Djokovic.
He's happy chap.
He's unbelievable, isn't he?
What a comeback.
37 years old.
Yeah.
Beats Carlos Alcaraz, 21. And you'd think...
He's still top of his game, isn't
Well,
he?
this is it. We thought it was going to be the handing over of the baton. That it was the tennis racket was going to be handed over, that Alcaraz was going to go forward and Djokovic would then be finished, being coached by Tottenham Hotspur at the moment with that.
Yeah.
But anyway, he came through in 4 sets and it was just a magnificent performance. You've got to give it to the guy with it, like Connor.
Good on him.
Paul, the situation at Manchester United with the new owners of the club, a lot of big cuts there and a lot of disquiet about it. But legends, I mean, where I sit, Sammy McIlroy has got that area, and you know he talks to people at half time and that sort of thing as well. But there's a lot of people. There's Brian Robson's there, Andy Cole is there. There's a lot of ex-players that turn up on match day.
And a lot of clubs have that. They have ambassadors who are ex-players, and then they also have ex-players that will be there on match day. Liverpool have loads of them. I know Mark Lawrenson is involved, and like you said, we have Frank Stapleton, I know, he's at Manchester United, and some of the others that you mentioned. But Ineos have cut the money, saying, well, we've got to cut their money as well. And also, there's they stopped a £40,000 a year donation, which is to the Association of Former Manchester United Players. So that goes to... Because there's a lot of players that are extremely well-known but didn't earn anywhere near the money that players earn today. So he's cut that as well, and a lot of players are actually getting their money cut. And there's a lot of clubs... Some clubs look after their ex-players very well, some don't. Luckily, the club that I go to at Spurs, they do it very well, and they look after their players. But others, they do not treat them with the reverence that the supporters actually do.
It's
bizarre.
very strange. I mean, I find myself on a few occasions queuing up for things or queuing up for tickets, but having players in the same queue.
Yeah.
Which I think is a bit embarrassing.
Yeah, so do I. So do I. I've seen it where...
Former players.
And I've spoken to former players at other clubs who are saying, you know, well, we're just told that we can't eat with them, we can only talk to people, and it's a lot of young people that are at football, don't know anything about the game, that then go, oh, yeah, you go over there, you go... And it's like, then you see how the public react to them, because these are true legends to all of us. So anyway, they've got to treat these people right.
Should we play a very quick birthday?
Yes, let's do some birthdays. OK, famous birthdays today. Sporting birthdays, we've got a few here. Who are they? We didn't do too well, did we, last... Oh, no, we got Luke Littler.
I did.
But but on the money. OK, first one. It's the Dart Destroyer, Nigel Benn. Nigel Benn, to help you a little there, Ellie. Two-time world champion. We're looking the early 90s. Conor Benn.
I think about
his son, who's fighting
I know Conor Benn, yeah.
I think about the same age as me, I think. 65.
65 for Nigel Benn. He's got 83% knockout ratio.
60.
It's actually the same as mine.
61.
Mine's being knocked out, though, so...
OK, what have you got?
61.
61 is the right... Did you say 61?
Yes!
61 is right.
Well done,
61 is right. Let's go to another one. Let's go to another one. We're on a roll. Next sporting birthday is Jonathan Woodgate.
Oh, yes.
Middlesbrough coach under Michael Carrick, Leeds, Newcastle, Real Madrid, Spurs, played in, let's say, early 2000s was his peak.
50.
50 for Jonathan Woodgate.
46.
45 is the answer for Jonathan Woodgate.
Sorry, Jonathan
Still
Woodgate.
1-0 to Ellie. You got another one?
Yes.
Let's go for another one. Two more to go. Right, Stan Collymore. Stan Collymore, Liverpool, Forest.
Stan Collymore's
90s.
mother died this week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So commiserations to him.
Yes.
That'll be a hard birthday for him.
I know.
How old would Stan be? 55.
55. Very good.
Is that good?
It's good, but it's not right. Why do I feel like I'm doing catchphrase? Right, you choose. I can't help you, Ellie.
58.
54.
Went
one
the wrong
more.
way.
This is one that's no longer with us. But how old
I think
would he
you
be
were
today?
trying to say scores 1-1 now.
Yes, well, no, you were 1 year off, though.
You were off, though.
1 year out.
You were off
54
the mark.
was the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
You said
1 year.
55.
How, you're not going to give me that wrong.
No, you didn't get it right,
money
did
or
you?
nothing, aren't we?
You didn't get it right.
Right,
Last one.
Last one. He is no longer with us, of course, but
Sir
Alf Ramsey, there we are.
He'd be like 160, wouldn't he?
Well, how old do you reckon he would be if he
idea.
was still alive?
Very old.
Very old.
106.
100, that's it,
7.
107.
10.
Very good. 105. He was born 105 years ago.
That was so close.
Had elocution lessons, you know. He was from Dagenham, but who talked very much like this because he had to make himself sound posher.
Did he have elocution lessons?
Yes.
Gosh, he seems like landed gentry, doesn't he?
Yeah, but when you listen to him, you can hear a little bit of Cockney and then who's a bit like this. And all the old players used to laugh about the way he used to talk because he'd had elocution lessons to make himself
didn't know that.
a little bit more educated.
Yeah. Well, people were phoning in about today about having a cup of tea in the morning, how important it is to start their day.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a story in the papers today. Half of British people say they can't function without a cup of tea in the morning.
Yeah, I love it.
And we get through 53 million cups of tea before 9 a.m. in Britain. We're still tea obsessed.
We are.
Let us know if that's you, gbnews.com/yoursay. And if you're in search of some winter sun, thanks, Queety, here is the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The sunshine will be returning to Cyprus, but still a few showers around for the next day or so. Much of mainland Greece fine and sunny. There are the showers across Cyprus. They'll be clearing, as should the showers over Turkey as well. But remaining pretty mixed, quite cloudy over the Balkans with a few showers in here and for northern Italy. It's been quite wet recently in southern Spain. More wet weather to come here on Thursday and more showers to come across the Canaries. But it should be turning sunnier in Tenerife for the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Stories will get you talking this morning. Claire Hodgson and Nikki Hodgson, and Claire Muldoon will have those, and they'll get you going with what's making the news right after this.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
An absolute monster. It took Chloe and Sean Ing 90 minutes to reel in this gigantic 8-foot-long monster fish from Chigborough Fisheries in Essex. And upon weighing this enormous marine beast, it was found to have been 7 pounds heavier than the existing British record, a 143-pound catfish caught also in Essex. But as I understand it, you actually went for a Chinese meal when fate struck. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. So I was fishing an area of Chigborough where you have to fish at a fair distance. So I cast my rods out and then we ordered a Chinese. So I got the bite at about 10 to 8 at night. And then about 20 minutes into it, my phone started ringing, the Chinese guys at the gate with my delivery. So I had to send a couple of guys off to go and get it. And then, the fight, obviously, you can't just stop the fight to go and get your Chinese. The fight went on, for about an hour and a half in total. There's no net in the world that's big enough for this fish. So we had to send out, first of all, I sent out a mate, Alex. He went out there to go and basically use what we call a sling. So that's a safe apparatus that we use to take the fish out of the water. He then went to and he turned around and he was like, we're going to need another sling. So then we sent out another friend with a sling, and these slings are 4 foot long each. So then we had the catfish wrapped up in 2 slings, and it was still slightly longer than that. And then we got to a point where we was like, now we've got to try and get it out of the water to photo, to weigh it, because obviously we knew then that it was possibly going to be a UK record.
GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got Nikki and got Claire. They've got stories in the papers. And Nikki, the word that you would associate with children, the children's favourite slang word at the moment is what?
It's slay.
Slay.
And this is to do
Slay
with,
Queen.
Yeah, this is to do with a survey of 6,000 children from the Oxford University Press, aged 6 to 14. I mean, it's quite young, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Waiting for my child to start saying the word. But apparently the second favourite, I mean, obviously, I do know what that means, but the second favourite I didn't know is Sigma, which is used to describe someone as cool and admirable. Sigma.
I haven't
Have you
had
heard of that?
So what context is the word slay being used in then?
Yes, because I can't get this.
If something's a slay, it's
like your outfit slays.
It's like
slay
on
queen.
point,
It's like
it's hot, it's fashionable.
You're doing brilliantly.
It's
You're
brilliant.
Nothing to do with
Slay.
Santa.
No.
Spell S-L-A-Y.
So how would you actually use that in a sentence?
So like, your tie is slay, or you're slaying in that
It's
tie.
not even proper English.
You're slaying in that tie.
What is proper English, though?
Or you'd say...
Well, your tie looks nice, so your tie's horrible looking or
Oh,
whatever.
I've got one. If I ask a good question, you'd be like, slay queen. Meaning I've done really well.
You can just encourage someone by saying
Yeah, feel free to
slay.
say that any time throughout the programme.
But moreover, this sample is from kids aged 6 to 14.
That's what baffled me, that kids as young as 6 going, slay.
What, are your kids saying any of this, Claire? You've got all Gen Z, Gen Zs, haven't you?
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Do they have a different language?
No.
Oh, good.
Oh, maybe perhaps they do when they're not with me. It's bad.
You wouldn't have any of that.
They translate.
It's bad enough the omission of the glottal stop with kettle, bottle, kettle. And I'm like, would you please pronounce those T's?
Oh.
That's for one in particular, but not the rest.
Now, Claire, it appears that over the years, as we've become more affluent, men get taller, women get taller too, but women also get much heavier.
Well, not much. You don't need to put the word much in.
It is. Men
Not
are
much.
sick.
You see, the thing is, as you're, as we evolve right over the past century, living conditions have got better.
Yeah.
Our health have got better. We're living longer.
We do less physical things.
So what the statistics have shown is that men have increased in size, in height, and indeed in weight, as have women, but men are doubling that up. So they're getting taller at a faster rate than women and by a larger margin.
Why?
That is so fascinating.
Because of all the conditions that we've just said. Better living conditions, better nutrients. And there is another snippet in the research here that's alluded to the fact that women, when they want to procreate, look to taller, more muscular, more physical men as mates.
So we're emphasising that. I mean, when I first read this story, I was like, oh, misogyny, men taller than women all the time, having a better run of everything. And then I was like, well, obviously science doesn't work like that.
Except, Nikki, well, I know this for a fact, and I used to hear this, and then it has been a fact, that the older you get, the smaller you get.
You shrink, don't you? You shrink an inch.
You lose height.
You were saying that yesterday.
My mum says that.
I was at a doctor's appointment recently, and he said, how tall are you? And I said 5'10.5", and he said,
Are you?
I said, yes, of course I am, 5'10.5". And he measured me, and I was 5'9".
Well, I'm only 5.5", so I'm going to be under 5 foot.
I think that's posture, though.
It's posture's a lot to do with it.
Posture.
Yeah.
But you were saying your spine compacts.
Your spine compacts and bends.
Oh, that's the science of it.
Wow.
You need higher heels.
Well, I guess men are slaying it then, aren't they?
Wow, men are slaying. Yeah, it's true. Nikki, a repair bill for crumbling schools, hospitals and prisons is at least £49 billion. Could actually be higher.
Well, this is interesting. Do you remember that story about 18 months ago about RAC, that concrete that was decaying that we found in all our schools,
and they're still
prisons?
not repaired, a lot of
so I presume this is what this is about, although the acronym RAC is not mentioned in this report. But apparently, the problem is that things are decaying at a faster rate and it's going to cost even more than we thought to repair it. But that's because the Tories didn't fix anything, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, well...
Well, there's no point saying that we've got the school building programme or whatever, and then we don't bother about it after that. We don't bother about the maintenance.
No.
Maintenance is an essential part of all of this.
Yeah, it's false economy. It's false economy.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that story was so big. Do you remember? For a few weeks, it was a terrible thing, and nobody should be in these environments. And then it kind of went away. But it seems like it's going to come back. But Rachel Reeves is going to have to find the money to foot that bill somehow.
Oh, who would want to be Rachel Reeves, really?
Just funny the press aren't banging on the fact she's the first female chancellor now, isn't it? That's all quiet.
That lasted a few days. But,
Yeah, that went away so quickly.
And so your point is what?
Well, but She came in as the first female Chancellor of the Exchequer, and because she was a woman, she was going to slay it. She was going to do such a great job. The reality is she's not. So they're not bringing the feminist angle into it.
She's in Davos now, Claire. She could be bringing lots of business back to Britain.
I don't need reminding of that.
She's not going to bring lots of business back to Britain.
Well, she's hoping she will.
She's not. She's not, and we all know she's not. But here's the thing, and this is where Trump, I think, Nikki, is very interesting on this, is that he's saying, we're going to drill.
Yes.
We're going to get oil, we're going to get gas, that's what we're going to get coal out of the ground, we're going to do all this. And that's where the money is. I'm not saying that's right for the environment, I'm not saying whatever, but where he's right is, I'm fed up with politicians talking about creating wealth. They can tax, they think they get money from taxes, but no one knows how to create money. No one knows how to actually say, gold mine, we're going to get that, we're going to do this. Fracking could solve this country's problems in minutes. But we don't frack. We're not going to frack.
No, and also industries where there is money to be made, technology, for example, which we were meant to be a hub of, you know, all those companies have moved their businesses elsewhere because of the way we tax business. We're not having a relationship with industries that can grow. Same with, you know, what happened in Wales with the plants, you know, when we sorry, I've totally got the name, with Tata, when they wanted to invest in renewable energy and then they closed the plant there. You know, there were opportunities, all that rubbish that was spouted before the election about green energy being boosted and that, you know, there's going to be a green energy revolution and we'd all own a bit of energy in the UK, and that always put shelved. So.
I'm glad you've touched on the energy thing there, because I think Trump is very much a nationalistic leader who just wants to do the best for his country. We find that...
Why don't we get a leader like that?
That's what I was just going to bring the point up to. We don't have in this country a leader who wants the best for Britain. Our leaders at the moment, our government, can't even throw us an element of hope. They do nothing. In fact, what she should be doing in Davos is actually showing the outstanding best bits of Britain, but somehow this Labour government seemed to think that having pride in Britain, having pride in the United Kingdom, is something far right, is something far wrong, is something that's not want to be celebrated. But I think that's really wrong, and businesses are suffering from their proposals and their laws that they are bringing in.
And it is that hope and that optimism and that pride that actually leads to confidence in business and confidence in investment.
You know, when you raise a child or you're good with a dog or a family pet, praise, encouragement, it builds the character, it builds the virtue, it builds the resilience, it builds the hope. At the moment, we are hopeless. With a hopeless government.
Oh, dear.
Would you disagree? Would you disagree? Let us know. Have your views, and we'll reflect them this morning.
Yeah, we will. The UK's green energy revolution, I've just been looking at an estimate on this from an expert at thecoexperts.co.uk. 1.23 trillion for the UK. That's what the UK would need to completely transition to green energy.
And what she just brought in from China? 600 million.
It's going to need a few more trade deals.
Okay. Think on that. We're going to go to Alex Deacon for the weather forecast, and here's what he's got for you.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office. Here on GB News, a chilly one again today. A few fog patches again in places this morning, but much of the country will have a dry afternoon. A bit damp and drizzly in some places, certainly along the south coast, some patchy rain also across parts of northeast England, and a few showers further west. But overall, much drier day for northwest England and some good spells of sunshine coming out across parts of eastern Scotland, and mostly dry and fine for Northern Ireland, South Wales and southwest England too. A little bit more of that rain just trickling along the south coast. May see some in London, but it'll be fairly light. Most of the day dry. Temperatures, though, even where we've got some sunshine, only 5 or 6 degrees Celsius. And for some, it'll just stay misty and murky all day. A little bit of that rain across the southeast, so affecting Kent into the evening rush hour. Again, nothing too heavy, but just a bit damp and drizzly here. Clearer skies further west. Just a few showers coming in off the Irish Sea, and 1 or 2 showers into western Scotland too. Much of central and eastern Scotland dry and clear, and pretty quickly again those temperatures will be back down below freezing. We'll see another touch of frost forming where we've got the clear skies. Staying pretty cloudy though across East Anglia in the southeast well into the evening. Eventually here that cloud should tend to break up. A few mist and fog patches are possible, but for many it'll be a largely dry and largely clear night, which will allow it to turn a bit colder, perhaps than last night, certainly across a good chunk of England and Wales. Any rural spots getting pretty close to freezing. But further west, notice there's a line of rain moving in. That won't take long before it zips across Northern Ireland. A soggy start here tomorrow. And it doesn't stop there. It moves in across the rest of the UK as well. Hitting the colder air, it will provide some snow over the hills of northern England and Scotland for a time during Thursday. That system clears away, but then eyes out in the Atlantic as a storm comes moving in for Friday. Storm Eamonn is going to bring us some problems, and there are Met Office warnings in place. Stay tuned.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In North Yorkshire, the A64 is closed each way between the Barton Hill Crossroads and the Old Malton Roundabout, halfway between Scarborough and York after an accident. The Mersey Ferry suspended because of fog. There are a couple of problems in Staffordshire. The A50 is closed each way along Waterloo Road at Burslem in Stoke-on-Trent after a fire yesterday afternoon, and the A50 partly blocked westbound by an accident just after the A522 at Uttoxeter. In Suffolk, the A14 is partly blocked westbound at junction 59 at Trimley St Martin, causing queues. In London, Finchley Road's closed southbound off the A1 at Henley's Corner after an accident. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking half an hour in westbound queues approaching the M25 because of road works. Gatwick Express services remain suspended because of a signalling problem, and eastbound trains from Kent House to Shortlands via Beckenham Junction are diverting via Catford. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Imagine how £50,000 in cash from us could make your new year go with a bang.
Hi, my name's Victoria. I won the Spring Great British giveaway. So the day we got the money in our bank account.
On GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello
Good
there,
morning.
very good morning to you. Shocking reports that the police were gagged from releasing information on the Southport murderer.
Devastating details emerge about how Axel Rudakabana slipped through the cracks.
And despite the fact that he'd been convicted for violence and was just 17, he was easily able to order a knife on Amazon. That's a total disgrace, and it must change.
Leaving many asking whether anti-terrorism programme Prevent is fit for purpose.
The Prevent practitioner who took that call then did not decide when filling out the form about risk, ideology, that it should be passed to channel. So unfortunately, I think this is a very localised failing.
But will a public inquiry be enough to bring justice to the families of the 3 young girls who died?
The Chancellor mingles with the economic elite at Davos as her blitz to bag British business continues.
Lower taxes and less regulation. That's what Rachel Reeves has just said she wants for Britain. But of course, the government put up taxes in the budget. Can she convince businesses to invest in Britain? I'll bring you more details shortly.
Cracking down on fraud. Benefit cheats could be stripped of their driving licence. We'll be speaking to the Minister of Employment, Alison McGovern, just after 9 o'clock.
Donald Trump gets straight to work, putting the world on notice with fresh tariff threats and a message for the EU.
China's an abuser, but the European Union is very, very bad to us. They treat us very, very badly. They don't...
Sport this morning, the Champions League. Liverpool get their 7th win in 7 games, which guarantees them first or second place going into the round of 16. Still work to do for Aston Villa, as they lost in Monaco in front of Prince William. And snooker legend and Masters winner for the weekend, Shaun Murphy, is going to be with us in 20 minutes.
A bit of fog around today. Many places will be dry. The winds are light at the moment, but a storm system is coming in for Friday. Stay tuned for a full update.
OK, fog, we'll talk about that in a second. A very good morning to you on this Wednesday morning. Eamonn Holmes here.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
So there is fog, which is really bad news, particularly for Ellie, Paul, because she doesn't know where her fog lights are on her car and therefore can't use them, and therefore is a danger on the road as she drives around and could be knocking into anything and anybody.
Or anyone. I know. I'm a liability.
When you say fog lights, they're the ones at the back.
Wait a minute,
no,
wait
I
a
can
minute,
see
wait a
your
minute.
face.
You're not going to tell me you don't know where your fog lights are?
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure. Is that's because you get a little...
Apparently they're yellow.
An orange light with a zigzaggy
yeah,
through it.
Apparently they're yellow.
Your lamp.
Is that the one you push in and pull it and turn it?
You should be arrested for that. Yes.
No.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, and there's me driving in the fog, I think, I'll just put the full beam on just because it looks good when you're saying it bright. You can't do. Yeah, you mustn't full beam, must you?
Right.
No, if you full beam in the fog, it bounces back on you, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Ooh.
It lights up everything, and you
I've been
can't.
doing this all wrong.
All you can see is more fog. Although I don't like it when you see people with their fog lights on and it's not foggy, because then that will. So the fog lights, they're only back ones, right? They're not front ones.
I think there are front ones. Yeah.
You think? You're not sure?
There are
now.
front ones and back ones, apparently. Someone in the newsroom was
because you have
telling
to
me
be able
earlier.
to see you coming at them. It's got to be like an orangey light or something.
Where's Quentin Wilson when you need him? That's what I want to know.
We need help.
Yeah, there's the red one, which is brighter so everybody can see you when you're in front, but you don't need one because any light, surely, is going to bounce back off of the fog.
No, it helps you be visible in the fog.
Right, yeah, so it's the red lights at the back.
No, it could be on the front too.
But they're orange or yellow.
You normally... They're different colour.
Oh, for
I don't know.
Sorry,
Don't ask me. But loads of you getting in touch.
What, people don't
People
know
who don't know.
No, everybody else seems to know, apart from me and Coity. But Stephen says fog lights are dangerous and should be banned. So many use them without fog, and they blind everyone behind them.
There you go. See?
There
we are.
That's a stupid response, Stephen.
Oh,
I agree, Stephen.
We're all
Absolutely,
entitled
100%.
to our own opinion. Glenn says it's not just knowing where your fog lights are, which is a mystery to some of us, but knowing when to use them and then when to turn them off.
When it's foggy, often it's a good time.
Well, yes, you would think, yes. So often, I follow cars that are blinding me, who've left their fog lights on. It shows on the dash when they are on. So you have to pay attention to those dash warnings. And Sue says, it doesn't matter how thick the fog is, you can still see things better than this government.
When I was young, when I was a teenager, I had blue police lights built into my car.
I think that's legal.
You didn't?
No, I'm sure it isn't.
Was it like Starsky and Hutch when they put the thing on the top and then put it on the other?
Jack. That's what he used to do.
So did you do it?
Yeah, but also I had them built into the grills at the front and the back. And you'd flick them on, these blue lights would flash. There wasn't a horn or anything with it, but it was of course, the thing is, my car was a ridiculously stupid car. It was a Fiat 124. It looked like a Lada. It was the Fiat version of a Lada.
Literally a Lada.
But I had rally lamps on it and go faster.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, nice.
And do people actually move out your way?
Not really, but you shoot off with it, you know.
I had a Fiat 126, which was like this, really tiny.
It's a small one.
Someone actually said to me, where's the other roller skate? I never forgot when they said that, and it had a big white stripe down the side.
What colour was it?
It was light blue with a big white stripe, and it was about this big. I used to think it was fantastic.
Go faster stripes were important.
They were, absolutely, very important in the 80s, yeah.
Oh, very nice.
Essential item.
OK. Thanks, Paul. See you shortly.
Keep your views coming in, gbnews.com/your say.
We're going to talk about the Crown Prosecution Service now and the reports that police were stopped by them from releasing information about the Southport killer Axel Rudakabana.
Yes, the Prime Minister has revealed plans to redefine terror, despite warnings it could overwhelm the police and security service.
And that's as the country reckons with the news that Rudakabana was referred to the government's counter-terrorism prevent programme 3 separate times.
Well, last night, GB News spoke to former Prevent practitioner and former counter-extremism coordinator about why Prevent didn't pick this case up.
I believe that this is an incompetence, yes. And I believe that the incompetence around clashing ideologies, colliding ideologies is quite broad. And we're seeing young men in particular alone in front of the computer, not being radicalised into any particular ideology, but just being fascinated by violence. And where do we put that? Where does that land? I think it should land, in this case, definitely with Prevent, but sometimes the ideology is really unclear. Well, how come Child Services with 4 or 5 phone calls didn't pick this up? Maybe there needs to be more on people who are just fascinated with violence.
And then you had the Prime Minister at 8:30 yesterday morning trying to explain a lot of this away. What's the political fallout? Let's go to Catherine Foster for us, who joins us from Westminster. Catherine.
Yes, good morning. Well, the Prime Minister was clearly, in having that very early press conference yesterday morning, trying to get on the front foot, trying to say fundamentally the government, look, we are going to find out what happened. We're going to review pretty much everything to make sure that these sorts of things cannot happen again. Unfortunately, we hear it all too often, and this story is still, understandably, all over the front pages of the papers, not least because despite the many questions from journalists as to why the Prime Minister knew about the fact that this man had ricin, the fact that the Prime Minister knew that he had an Al-Qaeda training manual, that information was not made public till the end of October when he was charged under the Terrorism Act. Now, Sir Keir Starmer said, well, we couldn't divulge those details because we did not want to prejudice a trial if the trial had collapsed. How terrible that would have been. Of course, that's absolutely true. But it isn't clear why they were able to bring that information forth at the end of October, but not earlier, because when that information came to the public light, the trial did not collapse, did it, as we have seen? So I think still an awful lot of unanswered questions. The Home Secretary speaking yesterday, Prevent under scrutiny, and clearly they're saying, OK, he will be treated as a terrorist. It was an act of terrorism. But that is not the line that was taken for a very, very long time, because they said that despite the Al-Qaeda training manual, they were not able to pin it as a terrorist act, something that I think a lot of people will find very, very difficult to understand.
Yes. Catherine, another political story today, GB News exclusive actually. More than 1,000 small boat migrants have crossed the English Channel illegally since the beginning of the year. This is another challenge for this Labour government, isn't it, to try and get on the front foot on?
Yes, indeed it is. And I was in Poland with the Prime Minister last Friday. He was talking to Donald Tusk, the Polish Prime Minister, and I asked them about illegal migration. Now, Donald Tusk looked quite cross with me, actually, because I pretty much said that nobody had managed to get a grip of it. He said it was the sacred duty of governments to protect their borders and keep their citizens safe. But Sir Keir Starmer, of course, scrapped the Rwanda deterrent. Now, we don't know whether those planes would have ever taken off because they were never given the opportunity. I suggested to the Prime Minister that without a deterrent, people will always try to come. There's so many people would love to come to Europe and love to come and live in Britain specifically. Sir Keir Starmer insists that stopping the gangs in itself is a deterrent, that they are doing a lot of work on that they are deporting large numbers of people that are here illegally, that they are returning them. But those crossings are continuing. They show no sign of dying down, and also plenty of asylum seekers being housed in hotels, something that the government pledged to, and no sign of that either.
Well, Rachel Reeves is in Davos, isn't she, hoping to drum up more business for Britain?
Yeah, she is. She's going to have her work cut out, isn't she? Because a year ago, she was there with Sir Keir Starmer and everybody wanted to talk to them. They had been won over. Their business were really on side with the idea of a Labour government. But the reality has been a bit different, because first they came in with all the sort of doom and gloom messaging. We had those big tax rises that particularly hit businesses with that rise in national insurance, this package of workers' rights, which many businesses feel is going to make it harder for them. So Rachel Reeves going with a message to try to drum up investment, say Britain's a great place to do business. And she has said in the last hour or so, that they've wiped the slate clean. She says, my instinct is to have lower taxes, less regulation, and make it easier for businesses to do business. But a lot of business feeling that with the tax rises in the budget, with the workers' rights packages, they're doing anything but.
Catherine, leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Brings us to our poll of the day. We're asking, has the handling of what happened in Southport, the Southport murders, damaged your trust in our legal system?
Yeah, if you want to get involved, just scan the QR code on your screens now, or you can head to gbnews.com/poll. As always, the results will be announced in Martin Daubney's show this afternoon.
Looking at the other news coming in, let's see what we've got for you. Some breaking news, first of all. A 14-year-old boy's been arrested on suspicion of murder. That was after the fatal stabbing of a 12-year-old in Birmingham. The victim was taken to hospital shortly after 3 o'clock yesterday, but later died from his injuries. West Midlands Police appealing for further information on this.
At least 76 people have been killed in a fire that engulfed a popular Turkish ski resort. At least 51 others have been injured by the fire at the Grand Cartel Hotel. 4 people have since been arrested, including the hotel's owner.
Researchers are calling for urgent investigations into whether everyday medicines like ibuprofen could ease symptoms of dementia. These drugs have anti-inflammatory properties that scientists now think could help prevent memory loss. Just on that question of dementia, the actress Pauline Quirke yesterday announced through spokespeople that she was retiring from acting because she is suffering from this. And I'm just looking at the statistics for dementia around the country. It is the most common cause of death in Britain.
Is it really?
And cases are on the up. Almost 1 million people have it. Only around half have been officially diagnosed. It will hit 1.7 million by 2040. Nearly 1 in 40 people having it due to the ageing population there is in the country. Alzheimer's is the most, I'm going to say popular, it's a common type of dementia there is. But no cure from it.
Cruelest disease. Anybody who's been affected by it or has had a family member affected by it will know that. And we're just sending her all of our love.
We wish Pauline well.
Yeah, and she's been suffering with it for years, apparently, since 2021. But the family are only just speaking out about it now. So we're sending her lots of love and our best wishes as well, aren't we?
Let's have a look at the weather picture. Alex Deacon with that.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office. Here on GB News, a chilly one again today. A few fog patches again in places this morning, but much of the country will have a dry afternoon. A bit damp and drizzly in some places, certainly along the south coast, some patchy rain also across parts of northeast England, and a few showers further west. But overall, much drier day for northwest England and some good spells of sunshine coming out across parts of eastern Scotland, and mostly dry and fine for Northern Ireland, South Wales and southwest England too. A little bit more of that rain just trickling along the south coast. May see some in London, but it'll be fairly light. Most of the day dry. Temperatures, though, even where we've got some sunshine, only 5 or 6 degrees Celsius. And for some, it'll just stay misty and murky all day. A little bit of that rain across the southeast, so affecting Kent into the evening rush hour. Again, nothing too heavy, but just a bit damp and drizzly here. Clearer skies further west, just a few showers coming in off the Irish Sea, and 1 or 2 showers into western Scotland too. Much of central and eastern Scotland dry and clear, and pretty quickly again those temperatures will be back down below freezing. We'll see another touch of frost forming where we've got the clear skies. Staying pretty cloudy though across East Anglia in the southeast well into the evening. Eventually here that cloud should tend to break up. A few mist and fog patches are possible, but for many it'll be a largely dry and largely clear night, which will allow it to turn a bit colder perhaps than last night, certainly across a good chunk of England and Wales. Any rural spots getting pretty close to freezing. But further west, notice there's a line of rain moving in. That won't take long before it zips across Northern Ireland. A soggy start here tomorrow. And it doesn't stop there. It moves in across the rest of the UK as well. Hitting the colder air, it will provide some snow over the hills of northern England and Scotland for a time during Thursday. That system clears away, but then eyes out in the Atlantic as a storm comes moving in for Friday. Storm Eamonn is going to bring us some problems, and there are Met Office warnings in place. Stay tuned.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, do stay with us. Still to come, Paul Coit will be joined by the Snooker Masters champion Sean Murphy. It's his first TV interview, actually.
Yeah, we're looking forward to speaking to Sean live right after this.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Ironic article in The Guardian, Nick, caring about facts.
Yeah, this is Meta is ushering in a world without facts, says Nobel Peace Prize winner. And they just seem to give these Nobel Peace Prizes to anyone these days. It's Maria Ressa.
Not working.
Zuckerberg came out, and it was very bold. He said a few things. We're going to use community notes instead of fact-checkers. Fact-checkers in inverted commas, it just means people pushing usually a specific viewpoint. Community notes seems to be a great system that X uses, so why not do that? I think that's great. He's going to reduce restrictions on topics like immigration and gender. Good, because I'm against censorship. He's going to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more, which is great. He's also moving content moderation to Texas instead of California, which is banter. So now the cynical version is he just realises we've got a new regime, it's the MAGA era, and I want to be mates with Trump, who said that I should that if I interfere with the 2024 election, he should spend the rest of his life in prison. So he did mention he might be a bit scared of that. He was involved in that in Facebook suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop scandal, and I feel that he didn't like being a part of all that from watching interviews.
And also the suppression of arguments about gender and sex, what is biological sex and whatnot. You get banned for saying there are two sexes.
They're on the wrong side of this, and now he's correcting. But the weird thing is the people, of course, the people who don't like this, the lefties, this person, Ressa, is saying that this is a big problem. It's an extremely dangerous time. I've seen all this from the lefties. They just call it disinformation. They're worried about this because to them it's disinformation. To other people it's information.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I think we can all agree if people think they're getting their facts just directly from Facebook, then something's horribly wrong. But we know that. The community notes thing, I think, is quite good because that sort of first-hand experience people are putting down, aren't they?
Yeah. People have loads of different views come together, and it's an aggregate, so that's why it works.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's sports time. Paul Coyte is here with us. Morning.
Good morning. There was a Spurs song that Chaz and Dave did.
Yeah.
That it was lucky for the Spurs when the year ends in 1, because Spurs would always win something when it ends in 1. So, you wonder where I'm going with this, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, Sean Murphy, who is the Masters snooker champion, it's lucky for him when the year ends in 5, because he was world champion in 2005. Then he won the Masters in 2015.
Yes.
And he's won the Masters again in 2025.
Brilliant. And we've got him this morning.
And he is. So it's lucky for him when the year ends in
Sean.
5. Sean
Good morning.
is with us. Morning, Sean.
Sean, congratulations, incidentally. Well done.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, guys. Listen, I hope this isn't true about the year ending in 5. If not, I'll see you in 2035.
Yeah, I
and we'll
know.
say no more of it.
Sean, it's something to look forward to, isn't it? The career will
I'm going to put it in the diary. I hope you're right about stuff like that. People have been saying that for years, but listen, you know, I'm not sure if there's anything in it. I'll make a note of it, and we can have a chat in 10 years' time.
Keep it in an envelope
It's always nice to get hold of some sort of silverware. And, you know, when you look at this, there's, you know, been a few years since you've held the Masters, hasn't it?
Incredible. To be totally honest with you, I'd sort of thought that those days were numbered for me, Eamonn, if I'm honest. I really thought those days had gone. You know, it's been such a long time since, you know, I competed for any of the majors in snooker. You know, I've won events over the years, but those big ones, you know, they're a little bit different. They're in a bit of a league of their own. And yeah, I thought those days were gone. So I'm still in shock about it, to be honest. It still hasn't sunk in. Yeah, totally. Yeah, it still hasn't sunk in at all.
Yeah, honestly, the stories around you, around the Masters this year, because, of course, the 147 that then you missed out on, and then you end up getting one. So tell us about that, because the first one you were pretty upset about, weren't you?
I was absolutely gutted. I've been trying to make a 147 in one of the majors since the first one I ever saw, which was Jimmy White's in 1992. Right. I was just 9 years of age, and I've been striving to do it at one of the big-time tournaments since then. Now, I'd made 8 in my career up until last week, and I messed it up on the last black to get to the yellow, put the cue ball behind the blue like a total idiot. And, yeah, I was gutted. And everybody, like, no one let me forget it either. The BBC ran a thing about it the next day. It was on Breakfast News. My socials have gone off. Like, you know, it was all over the place. So to then do one a couple of days later was incredible. But like people say, you know, it probably means nothing. If you don't go on and win the tournament, you know, it's all for nothing. So it was a dream come true in the end.
Sean, when you were 9 years of age, do you know who was hosting the Masters live on the BBC? Do you know who it was? It's gone a bit downhill, but I'm just saying, do you remember?
I'll give you a clue. It's one of the three of us. Who could it be?
Yeah, I've got half a chance of getting this one right, I think. I've seen the footage, Eamonn. Don't worry about that. I've seen you there presenting the snooker.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you very much indeed. Very happy days. Very a nice bunch of lads who were all, you know, greats, and they kept themselves close together and whatever. What's the camaraderie like in snooker nowadays? Because Miss Ellie was making a point. What were you going to say about snooker?
I was going to ask you, Sean, about personality in sports, because we look at Luke Littler in the darts, don't we? And he's just...
So what you're saying is you're saying darts has taken over?
I think it might have done. But then Sean's known for his personality, isn't he, in the snooker world? So personality's got to be important to it.
She's trying to bring it back again. I see what you're doing. Yeah, go on, Sean.
Here, Sean.
I think it's one of those things that snooker players get, you know, they get asked about all the time. There's no characters in the game anymore.
You're a character.
And I just think... Well, there's definitely me. Now, I can just say that there are loads of others as well. Of course, we don't have, the likes of Alex Higgins anymore, and Jimmy still plays. But the game has totally professionalised in the last 20 years or so. It's not what it was. The whole talk of if you were a good snooker player, it was the sign of a misspent youth. That's just those days are gone. And we've got wonderful state-of-the-art academies around the world now. We've got great youth programs bringing players on all around the world. It's a totally different professional outfit anymore. Yeah, we haven't got Alex peeing in flower pots in arenas anymore. But,
happy days. Hey, happy days.
we do have plenty of other good things happening.
Oh. How often do you practice then? Obviously, you have a table at home. Is it like a 9 to 5 when you're not in a tournament that you'll go out and you practice, or you don't do that? You leave it till tournament time? What happens with that, Sean?
Yeah, I think as you get older, the practice time goes down a little bit as you get other commitments in your life. I'm sort of starting out in my own broadcasting career. I do the BBC events, cover them for them. I've got my podcast and, all my socials and stuff like that. I've got my YouTube channel going on, and in and around all of that, I'm trying to practice as well for these events. So it's probably not 9 to 5 anymore, but it's every day. And I've had a couple of days off since the win at Ali Pally. Today is actually my first day back. Going to go in the office, going to get the cue out, see if I can still pot a ball after the excitement of the last few days, because we head to Germany on Sunday for the German Masters. So we're straight back on the bike, and no time to rest really.
Brilliant. So we're delighted that you chose us. You came on here for your first big interview after winning on Sunday. When I did it, Sean, it was the Benson and Hedges Masters, and everybody got fags. There were just hundreds of fags. Everybody was handing boxes of fags. Everybody was walking around smoking and whatever, and drinking in those days. Yeah. It was pretty relaxed. But my friend, we've got Easter. You talk about the German Masters, and as we're into the new year, it's going to be February quite soon, and then Easter. Easter is the World Championship. You have won it in the past. What's your philosophy towards that?
Well, I suppose it's all totally changed now following the win last weekend. As I say, I hope it doesn't come across as a bit of a line, but like my belief had totally gone, that I could do that still. And I'd paired up with Peter Ebdon. A lot's been made of that. He's helped me rediscover my, self-belief. And, I'll go to the World Championship now thinking that actually, I could win it. Whether I will or not is obviously remains to be seen. There's plenty of good players who are going to try and stop me and win it themselves. But in years gone by, you can kid everyone else, but you can't kid yourself. And, I perhaps had lost that belief and just didn't really truly believe it. Whereas now, I've got the trophy to show myself that actually I can still do it.
The year ends in 5. The year ends in 5. I can see the song coming out. One more for you. And this is now this story about the scoring a 147, the only man in the world, 147, a 9-darter, and a hole-in-one. Now,
who did that?
Sean, honestly. Now, is this true?
It is true. But let me say this. I wish with every wish in the world that I'd never mentioned it, because it's caused me nothing but grief.
I'm sorry, but we've got to mention it.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. It's caused me nothing but grief. I will say we had a lot of fun with it in the build-up to the World Darts Championship. Paddy Power got involved with it, and we were all over it. We had a lot of laughs with it. But the amount of people who were, up in arms about it on socials was hilarious. But it was a long time ago. I don't play darts anymore, as recent footage shows. It's awful these days. I was never that good, if truth be told. But what can I say? It was a random night in the pub, and it'll never happen again.
What's the hardest thing out of the 3 then? That's the thing everybody always says. What's the hardest thing to do? The hole-in-one, the 147, or the 9-darter?
Oh, it's not a debate, is it? Really? It's the 147 by a mile.
Of course it is.
By a mile. But the 9-darter is very, very special. A hole-in-one, I think, if you stood there long enough, anyone could get a hole-in-one. But I always say if you gave a total beginner unlimited attempts at all 3, they'd get the hole-in-one first. they might get the 9 data at some stage in their life, but they'd never, ever get a 147, ever.
Wow. Well done to you. You're the man. You are the expert. Sean, a delight talking to you. Thank you very much indeed. I hope we get a chance to talk to you again, and good luck at the German Masters.
Thank you very much, guys. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great stuff.
Sean.
Well done,
Thank
Sean.
you.
Okay.
As soon as he gets to the Crucible, I say we get him back on again.
Yeah,
I think
and he has that belief.
He's the one we got to follow.
Yeah.
He's our guy now. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, he's
Nice man as well.
really nice. You know, he was given Ray Reardon's cue.
No.
Oh, Ray Reardon, you know, the old Count Dracula, and he was given his cue as started off. That was the first cue he had, was Ray Reardon's cue.
Oh.
That's nice. Yeah. Nice thing to do. He wouldn't have done Pop Black. No, he'd been too young.
He was too young, but Ray Reardon was king of Pop
Brilliant
Black,
presenter of Pop Black. You see, the last presenter did the last series of Pop Black.
Yeah, I heard about
Brilliant.
it. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Oh, well.
Brilliant.
Give you a clue. It's one of us three again.
Very good, very good. Is that
Thanks,
it, Paul?
Boyd.
That's it. That's all I got for you.
Thank you very much indeed. Very good guest there, Sean.
Very
It's
good.
excellent to have him.
Now, time is running out on your chance to become our biggest ever giveaway winner with an incredible £50,000 in your bank account, totally tax-free. You can spend it how you like. Here's how.
There's just 2 weeks left to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far. £50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Amazing. Just the best feeling ever.
I'm in shock. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to
Junctions 25 and 24 south of Nottingham, that causing long delays. The M11 in Essex is partly blocked southbound between junctions 9 and 8 from the A11 to the Bishop Stortford Stansted Airport turn, causing queues. In Suffolk, the A14 is partly blocked westbound at junction 59 at Trimley St Martin, causing queues. The M26 in Kent is taking half an hour in queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks, and Gatwick Express train services are suspended because of a signalling problem. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Breakfast. It's 8:35.
Donald Trump's back as well and straight down to business. The day after his inauguration, he's already signed off a lot of executive orders.
Yes, over 200 of them so far. There's fresh tariff threats as well for Mexico, Canada and China, and this swipe at the European Union.
You put additional sanctions on Russia?
Sounds likely. The war should have never started. If you had a competent president, which you didn't, the war wouldn't have happened. We're talking to Zelensky. We're going to be talking with President Putin very soon, and we'll see how it all happens. We're going to look at it very soon. One thing I do feel, the European Union should be paying a lot more than they're paying, because under Biden, I mean, we're in there for $200 billion more. Now, it affects them more than it affects us. We have an ocean in between, right? Little thing called an ocean. I mean, what are we, stupid? I guess the answer is yes.
Well, he also announced a $500 billion investment in artificial intelligence.
Announcing the formation of Stargate. So put that name down in your books, because I think you're going to hear a lot about it in the future. A new American company that will invest $500 billion at least in AI infrastructure in the United States, and very quickly, moving very rapidly, creating over 100,000 American jobs almost immediately.
Well, earlier we spoke to US political analyst Eric Ham.
We're seeing the return of Donald Trump, and with all of these executive orders that he has enlisted, what we are now seeing, of course, is a bevy of lawsuits against these executive orders. In fact, we know
that is not actually playing out. We're having some technical difficulties there. We were playing out instead.
We were. It's been really annoying me all day. My tie goes off now.
I just fixed it for you.
But you didn't fix it.
I did.
You didn't. Look, it's all slanted on that side.
You've gone skew whiff again. Hang on.
I've gone skew.
There we are.
Anyway, have we got Donald Trump on tape?
No, I don't think we do. We did have some views coming in on fog earlier. Let me see if I can find those. Oh, here we are.
Don't worry. Hold on. Is it yes or no, folks? Keep chatting, Eamonn. Right, OK. Over. What have you got?
We've been talking about dogs this morning. You were saying that Maggie's particularly loving and caring. Because Nikki Hodgson was saying that her dachshund is, how do we put this? Quite needy sometimes. Ashby says, well, thank God for our furry friends. They are the very best company. And Sue, on the other side of the scale, says, the older I get, the more I understand why cockerels scream to start the day. Good morning to you too, Sue.
Well, some winter sun. We're going to show you where you can find that around Europe. These are the places to look, and then we'll be back with the newspaper review.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The sunshine will be returning to Cyprus, but still a few showers around for the next day or so. Much of mainland Greece, fine and sunny. There are the showers across Cyprus. They'll be clearing, as should the showers over Turkey as well. But remaining pretty mixed, quite cloudy over the Balkans, with a few showers in here and for northern Italy. It's been quite wet recently in southern Spain. More wet weather to come here on Thursday, and more showers to come across the Canaries. But it should be turning sunnier in Tenerife for the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We were talking earlier about the issue of Siri listening to you. Well, it's not just your own conversations being sort of harvested for data, but it's a problem with AI. So what seems to have happened yesterday is that Apple issued a alert saying that Luke Littler had won the darts before he had. I mean, imagine what would, if he then gone on to lose, how that would have looked. I mean, obviously, because he went, it is done. That's the alert. We can see the alert there now. And it also claiming that Brazilian tennis player Rafael Nadal had come out as gay when actually a different Brazilian tennis player was actually mentioned in the original story. So what it does is you see that's branded as BBC Sport. What the Apple AI system does is it farms alerts that it thinks people are getting from the source and then summarises them into one. That was going to be my question. Into one alert.
It looks to me like you would assume, OK, the BBC are reporting this.
Absolutely.
So the BBC News might be saying something else.
So it could happen to any news organisation.
This has highlighted a massive issue. I mean, having editorial judgment and quality control, because if this is going on, it's just contributing to the flow of misinformation. Yes. And we know that this is a problem on social media, people reporting false things. But if it seems to come from trusted news sources, that is a massive issue in credibility. I mean, if you had something like Reuters, who's a big news provider, doing this, you could hold people accountable, you could make changes, but when it's the AI doing it, I mean, what do? You're going to have to reprogram it in some way.
And if you just lost control, if you're a news source, you've lost control of what goes out, because it basically farms it, puts your logo on it and sends it out, even when it's nonsense.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're going through the papers now with Nikki Hodgson and Claire Muldoon. Morning, ladies. Morning. Claire, this story, in many of the papers actually this morning, that sparkling water may aid weight loss.
Well, it might, and it's a research thing that...
I drink fizzy water.
Good, well...
all day, and I'll tell you what's bad about it. Plastic bottles, and you get all this plastic poisoning into you with that. The ridiculous bit they do with the tops.
That's an EU thing.
So you go to drink and this top's going up your nose or whatever it is. It's the most irritating thing ever.
But don't you think the bubbles fill you up?
No, Sir Alex Ferguson said to me, don't ever drink fizzy water. It bloats you. It all bloats you. So... Because
it fills you up. That's the science.
Yeah, but you go... You think I'm like this naturally. If I didn't drink fizzy water, I would be anorexic beside you. So I would.
I think there's some sense to this, actually, Claire.
So, Claire, my point is, I just think that's a lot of cobblers.
I'm a fizzy water drinker. I swear by it.
Yeah, I think that's a good trick.
All I drink.
Fizzy water.
Pretty much.
And do you think it keeps you full?
Habit.
You're gorgeous,
Definitely.
so I'm prepared to take all that back.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Do you drink it from the bottle or do you pour it into something else?
It depends.
You can get the machines now that put the bubbles in.
Well, my husband actually bought a water cooler for the house because he wanted a really nice.
What, one that comes out with fizzy water?
Yeah, and we can pretend we're having water cooler chat like people do in offices.
That's so funny.
That's what you do when you work from home, Ellie.
Are you a fan, Claire?
Of fizzy water? I'm a fan of water, I say. But I mean, it's the CO2 in it that's supposed to change your blood and make the sugars in your blood go down, and therefore you lose weight.
Yeah. It's good if you're trying to cut back on alcohol because it feels...
kind of fun.
It feels kind of fun, like a special drink.
If you stick a bit of lime in it or a bit of lemon.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it feels almost like a...
It's very versatile.
Box soda lime without the vodka. Nikki, let's talk about the disgraced daughter of Captain Tom. Apparently she's facing the collapse of a company.
Yes, so do you remember that Captain Tom's daughter, Hannah, she was running the business element of the charity, and there were quite a lot of claims that maybe she was over-egging the pudding, siphoning off some of the profits that were meant for the charity for her own good. There was this huge story about a swimming pool that, you know, was banned. And then it turns out that when he had a memoir deal, they created a business, the daughter and her husband, which took the advance in its whole 1.47 million, which is incredibly large for a book, and that only 18,000 of that actually went to the charity. That's now been proven. So they siphoned off, you know, the best part of £1 million. And so the story now is that their business is in arrears, they owe money to loads of people, and it's all just about to kind of, you know, fall apart. And I think people were really shocked by this story.
Yeah, it's very sad that the man's memory...
Tom did, really besmirched it,
Well, it smacks against completely his legacy, doesn't it?
Completely.
It's such a shame.
And I'm sure he would have been horrified too, because he didn't know the half of it, right?
Yeah,
so, anyway.
No, just so sad.
Claire, sports fields, OK, are school fields and whatever, and you get referees and you get blowing whistles and things on here. Tell us this story, because this increasingly is found not to be a very popular thing to live beside a sports field.
Well, this is complete. I mean, why buy a house close to a sports field?
Because you don't realise in advance.
If you're not going to appreciate some level of noise. I mean, how on earth? The only issue I have is it's fake grass. They've got this 4G thing that's not real, or 3G sports pitch is not real grass. And I think, you know what, the school are trying to get extra cash in, so they are leasing, in effect, these sports grounds to five-a-side lads
so
that come and play after work. So it can happen from 9 in the morning to 10 at night. Yeah. And they were told explicitly that when people bought the houses that they would have no noise pollution past 6 o'clock, which would seem reasonable. However, people need to get fit. People enjoy the affableness of teamwork, of getting together. And I think that they should continue. And I think to blow the whistle, I mean, how on earth are referees supposed to stop any dangerous play?
Well, I think what they're saying is you don't do it. You know, stop it at 4 o'clock or something like that.
Yeah, but the schools are trying to make extra money, so they're leasing then the pitches to five-a-side footballs or netballs. And being a mum, being on the touchline of some rugby games, being at the netball matches of the girls, you do need whistles. I can't see a workaround for it other than to stop them playing at a certain date.
But they're reporting a ban on referees' whistles. Has it come into force? Has it been proposed?
It's been revoked because they did want it, they were proposing it, the proposal got through, and now they're revoking it.
I just think about all the kinds of noise pollution you could complain about. That's got to be at the bottom of the list.
Dogs?
That's quite a nice...
My dog, definitely, because he got an Asbo, a doggy Asbo, because he's so loud.
Did he?
Yeah, he was threatened with one.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
It is.
I live in fear of him being taken away every day.
Oh, no.
Car alarms going off indiscriminately.
Car alarms, yeah. Digging.
Especially
any kind of
wind.
People doing DIY on a Sunday morning. Oh, my God. That's got to be the most
I think that's
unneighbourly thing to do.
I really, really do.
Drives you potty.
Saturday afternoons and Sundays, no way, Jose.
Quiet time.
That's a pet peeve of mine as well.
So sports fields and whistles, yes or no?
Yes, you have to. Nonsensical.
OK. Here's an interesting one, this chimney sweep here. Tell us this story.
Well, I didn't even know chimney sweeps still existed, unless you were Jacob Rees-Mogg, he probably has a few. This is to do with the residents in Brighton who, you know, some of whom have older houses, but they also have houses where there are wood-burning stoves, and they've been asking their chimney sweeps to park away from their homes so that nobody knows they've actually got something that they shouldn't have, i.e. a wood-burning stove, because it's really bad for the environment and it's bad for health. Well, it's just very Brighton, isn't it? If you think about, you go to Brighton, I've got loads of friends there, I spend quite a lot of time there, and people are just so puritanical about being green. And then there's this idea that people are kind of, I don't know, wood stove shaming each other. Hence, you know, if you're getting your chimney cleaned or your stove cleaned, that's better. That's good. That's not a bad thing to do. But it's this idea that people are secretly having them and not revealing to their neighbours that they've got them.
See, what a lot of rubbish again. Do any of us really believe that we're all being choked to death, or our lungs are all clogging up because somebody's burning wood on their stove?
I mean, there's a body of evidence, but it's not that everybody's in desperate straits because of a few wood burning
There's
stoves.
nothing nicer than a real
I know,
fire,
it's
though.
so
there
nice
really
to see
isn't.
and
A real
watch.
coal
Cozy.
fire. And the smell and everything, it just is so
And
lovely.
I think it's very user-friendly and efficient. When you get the storms, the branches break, everything's lying
Use it
around
up.
the woods. You go out with your dog, you pick up a few logs and you bring them back home again. I just think all this is rubbish. So basically, the chimney sweeps are being asked to park miles away from
The
house.
jobs that they're doing.
The jobs that they're doing.
Because they're trying, they've got to take on the shame of the person that's hired them.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's just ridiculous.
There is a stigma attached to so much now. I mean, I've met someone recently who has lots of green friends, and she had a very obvious tan, and she was like, "Oh no, don't mention my tan because then my green friends will know that I've been away on holiday." I was like, surely that's not a bad thing, but it's the fact it was a long haul flight. She didn't want her friends to know.
I just think you
Words
can't.
people should
just
learn to
saying
say
walking
more
instead.
often.
But it's I think what other people think of me is none of my business.
Yeah.
It's a good
Yeah,
thing to live
but
by.
I mean, would you particularly worry if you were burning wood? Would you worry what anybody around you thought about it?
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't.
No.
I wouldn't at all.
I wouldn't.
So we'd be interested to know where this is happening.
Do you know what I'm worried about, though? And we look at Pauline Quirk here and her declaration that she's suffering from dementia. She's 65 years of age.
It's no age, is it?
And I just think now, when we look at how common this is and how easily this is being diagnosed, it's a big worry.
It's a huge worry. It really is a huge worry. I myself have been affected by it. My dad had dementia. It's not the dementia that kills you, it's the inability to articulate other physical things that are going on in your body. And it's just ridiculous to think that we now have seen this happen for years and years and years, and yet there doesn't seem to be a cure or something to make anything easier for anyone. And the youngest diagnosis now is starting to come through. She was diagnosed at age, 61? Pauline Quirk?
Yes,
and it's
very young.
now
Very young.
the ramifications of that are now coming through. And I think the more we talk about it, the more we see it, we can only hope that something will be done about it.
Well, there's that story in the papers today, isn't there? The scientists are looking into ibuprofen
As an
treating dementia.
anti-inflammatory.
Yes, as an anti-inflammatory. They're helping. It could help to prevent memory loss.
Well, and to be fair, in the past few years, there has been this discovery of this drug that can at least slow down dementia, slow down the proteins. So, we're on the periphery of a breakthrough, but we're not there yet. And then that's not even to mention the care bill and the impact on families.
Well, that's it, because it's incredibly difficult to care for someone who does have dementia, because they could either become aggressive or they can just be so manic all the time.
Yeah, personality changes with
Absolutely.
it's really difficult.
Absolutely.
Well, the good thing about ibuprofen would be that it is accessible and it's
Look,
cheap.
the bad thing about ibuprofen is it'll ruin your stomach. So you're told not to take too much ibuprofen, and yet here we are saying, oh, take it for dementia.
Yeah.
So you might not be, have your head deteriorated, but your stomach will go as a result of it.
Yeah. Claire, let's have a look at something totally different, shall we, in The Sun. A trigger alert on Only Fools and Horses.
I mean, come on, how many... I mean, Trigger, was that not a character in Only Fools and Horses? And now, everything we seem to be getting, Faulty Towers, Trigger alert, it's been taken off, you can't actually watch it. And all the oldies now are starting... All the oldies, meaning programmes that have been made in the 60s and 70s and 80s, 90s now for Only Fools and Horses are carrying trigger warnings.
I don't know, Claire, how Gold, the TV channel, actually is on air, because every programme must come with a trigger alert as a result.
Well, it must. But are people that sensitive? Are people that silly?
No, people aren't, but the what would you say?
Production
the boss, the boss.
commercial aspects, But trigger warnings have been a load of rubbish from the beginning.
I'm glad
Shakespeare
you
should have
said that.
Look, I was a literature student. I wasn't at a university where they were in force, but they came into force later. The idea that you can't read Shakespeare because you're going to be triggered, whatever.
I'm going to trigger you there, Nicky. Thank you, Claire. Thank you very much indeed. Here's your weather.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office. Here on GB News, a chilly one again today. A few fog patches again in places this morning, but much of the country will have a dry afternoon. A bit damp and drizzly in some places, certainly along the south coast, some patchy rain also across parts of northeast England, and a few showers further west. But overall, much drier day for northwest England and some good spells of sunshine coming out across parts of eastern Scotland, and mostly dry and fine for Northern Ireland, South Wales and southwest England too. A little bit more of that rain just trickling along the south coast. May see some in London, but it'll be fairly light. Most of the day dry. Temperatures, though, even where we've got some sunshine, only 5 or 6 degrees Celsius. And for some, it'll just stay misty and murky all day. A little bit of that rain across the southeast, so affecting Kent into the evening rush hour. Again, nothing too heavy, but just a bit damp and drizzly here. Clearer skies further west, just a few showers coming in off the Irish Sea, and 1 or 2 showers into western Scotland too. Much of central and eastern Scotland dry and clear, and pretty quickly again those temperatures will be back down below freezing. We'll see another touch of frost forming where we've got the clear skies. Staying pretty cloudy though across East Anglia in the southeast well into the evening. Eventually here that cloud should tend to break up. A few mist and fog patches are possible, but for many it'll be a largely dry and largely clear night, which will allow it to turn a bit colder perhaps than last night, certainly across a good chunk of England and Wales. Any rural spots getting pretty close to freezing. But further west, notice there's a line of rain moving in. That won't take long before it zips across Northern Ireland. A soggy start here tomorrow. And it doesn't stop there. It moves in across the rest of the UK as well. Hitting the colder air, it will provide some snow over the hills of northern England and Scotland for a time during Thursday. That system clears away, but then eyes out in the Atlantic as a storm comes moving in for Friday. Storm Eamonn is going to bring us some problems, and there are Met Office warnings in place. Stay tuned.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. The M8 in Glasgow is partly blocked eastbound by an accident at junction 22 for the M77. There are queues from junction 24 at Govan. In North Yorkshire, the A64 is closed each way between Barton Hill and Old Malton after an accident. In East Yorkshire, the A63 is blocked westbound by an accident between Hessel and North Ferriby, causing delays. The Mersey Ferry suspended because of fog. In Staffordshire, the A50 is closed along Waterloo Road at Burslem in Stoke after a fire yesterday. The M1 in Derbyshire, 2 out of 4 lanes are closed southbound after an accident between junctions 25 and 24 from the A52 to the A453, causing long delays. The M11 in Essex is a lane closed southbound where a car caught fire between junctions 9 and 8 from the A11 to the Bishop Stortford Stansted Airport term, causing delays in both directions. And there's no service on the Gatwick Express because of a signalling problem. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
There's just 2 weeks left to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far. £50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Amazing. Just the best feeling ever.
I'm in shock. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from
You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Shocking reports. The police were gagged from releasing vital information on the Southport murderer.
Well, devastating details have emerged about how Axel Rudakubana slipped through the cracks.
And despite the fact that he'd been convicted for violence and was just 17, he was easily able to order a knife on Amazon. That's a total disgrace, and it must change.
It leaves many people asking whether the anti-terrorism agency Prevent is fit for purpose.
The Prevent practitioner who took that call then did not decide when filling out the form about risk, ideology, that it should be passed to channel. So unfortunately, I think this is a very localised failing.
But is a public inquiry enough to bring justice to the families of Alistair Silva-Aguirre, BB King and Elsie Stanton?
Well, the police have said that as disorder spread across parts of the country last summer, there was information that they wanted to get out to the public that might have helped quell some of that disorder, but they were effectively gagged by the Crown Prosecution Service.
The Chancellor is mingling with the economic elite at Davos as her blitz to bag British business continues.
Cracking down on fraud, benefits cheats could be stripped of their driving licences under new plans. We'll be speaking to the Minister of Employment, Alison McGovern, in just a moment.
Donald Trump gets straight to work putting the world on notice with fresh tariff threats and a message for the EU.
China's an abuser, but the European Union is very, very bad to us. They treat us very, very badly.
A bit of fog around today. Many places will be dry. The winds are light at the moment, but a storm system is coming in for Friday. Stay tuned for a full update.
Hello there, very good morning to you on this Wednesday morning. This is GB News. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast. Reports in the papers this morning that the police in Merseyside were stopped by the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, from releasing vital information about the Southport killer Axel Rudakubana.
The Prime Minister's revealed plans to redefine what is termed as terror, despite warnings it could overwhelm the police and security services.
That's as the nation reckons with the news that Axel Rudakubana was referred to the government's counter-terrorism Prevent programme 3 separate times.
Mark White, as you see, is in the studio with us today. Where do we move to today with this story?
Well, I think there's fallout and questions that the Crown Prosecution Service, the Director of Public Prosecutions, is going to have to answer here, because it's not just the lines coming from the police, Merseyside Police in particular in this case, but other forces as well have said that they have been increasingly concerned about what they see as overreach by the Crown Prosecution Service, inserting themselves between the well-worn policy of police and journalists liaising, giving background briefings on a case before trial, sometimes even before charges, to bring journalists up to speed with important information that is important to get out to the public, especially at the time of July into August last year, when disorder was breaking out across the country because of misinformation and a lack of information. Merseyside Police wanted to get information out there about this man's religion, about, yes, the fact that some terror documents and writing were found in the house, but they were prevented and advised not to do that.
How would that have prevented the disquiet that took place on the streets?
Because there was a vacuum that was being filled by increasingly wrong-headed suggestions on social media about this man coming across on a boat, being on an MI6 watch list, and all of the above. And the narrative, remember, was we're not being told the whole truth by the authorities. The authorities shut down to a large extent and wouldn't actually reveal information to the public. It just fed into this narrative and belief that we're not being told the whole truth. Only, of course, in the fullness of time, yesterday, with the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary both standing up and saying, well, yes, that's right, we did actually know a lot more about this individual and we didn't tell you at the time. What's that going to do for public confidence in the government and the authorities going forward if, God forbid, we have another atrocity like we saw in Southport in the months and years ahead? Who's going to believe the information that comes out from official sources?
Who makes the decision in government over this? Is that ultimately the Prime Minister's decision as to what to say?
Well, you see, this is the interesting thing, and I think this is why there will be some searching questions for the Crown Prosecution Service, because what we heard, not just from the police in statements from the Chief Constable of Merseyside, the head of Counter-Terror Command at Scotland Yard saying they'd been advised by the Crown Prosecution Service, actually the Prime Minister himself and the Home Secretary all saying the advice that they were getting from the Crown Prosecution Service is to say little to nothing on this for fear of collapsing the trial. But this fear of collapsing trials, I think, has been overplayed. I've covered trials for many, many years when, in the past, much more information and background about individuals was splashed all over the papers and, indeed, the broadcast media in the months before a trial took place. That never, as far as I can recall, ever led to the collapse of a trial. It led to judges advising people to forget noises off, concentrate on the evidence before them, and not, try to research or remember things they might have heard. Only judge it on the facts that will be presented in that particular court case.
And questions as well this morning, Mark, about the Prevent programme. I'm sure I can't even imagine how the families of those three little girls are feeling, finding out that there were 3 separate referrals made to the Prevent programme about Axel Rudakabana, and he was deemed not to be a threat. It's not fit for purpose, surely, as a programme.
Yes, well, it's not just Prevent, of course. There were multiple agencies involved here. All of these agencies, from the police, the court service, the youth justice system, social services, the NHS, and yes, Prevent, all failed to pick up on a violent individual who, at the age of 13, had taken a knife into school multiple times. 10 occasions he admitted to taking knives into school, until one occasion when he was finally excluded from school. He returned a few months later and assaulted pupils at that school with a hockey stick. There were real concerns about not just the violence he was exhibiting, but his very publicly stated desire to exact revenge on those he saw as sort of wronging him.
Anyway, so if it wasn't a knife, it would be a hockey stick.
Well, absolutely, yes. I mean, another thing, of course, that we got in terms of government talking points yesterday was the desire to ensure that people can't buy these knives over Amazon. Well, there should be safeguards. The likes of Amazon, where you need to be of a certain age to get a knife. Yeah. But the fact is, these were kitchen knives. He could have gone into the kitchen of his family home and taken a knife, and the same result would have been what we saw happening in Southport at the end of the day anyway.
Mm. You know the 3-month gap, Mark, between Axel Rudakabana being charged and his name being released, the details about the terror manual being released, ricin, all of that detail. Do we understand, do we know why there was that 3-month gap? Has that been answered by anybody?
No, not in any satisfactory way. There has been no explanation as to why 3 months passed between the discovery of the ricin toxin, deadly toxin, in that house in Lancashire where Axel Rudakabana lived, and indeed the Al-Qaeda terror documents, and those additional charges being brought and the public being told about that. In terms of his name, that did come out a bit earlier on. Remember, a judge decided, because he was very close to his 18th birthday, that they could eventually name him. But by that time, of course, the riots were well involved and taking place in multiple locations across the country and indeed even in Northern Ireland. It's about this information that could have been put into the public realm that bit earlier to show, light is the best disinfectant. Yes. At the end of the day, being honest with people and saying, look, here's what we do know so far. It eventually may, of course, form the basis of the prosecution against an individual. But yes, here are the facts that we know, rather than just shutting down, as the authorities did on this occasion, and leaving the public to believe, rightly now as confirmed by the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary yesterday, that they weren't being told the whole truth.
OK, our Home Security Editor there, Mark White.
Mark, thank you very much indeed. We can now go to Matt Vickers. Matt's the Shadow Minister for Crime, Policing and Fire. Matt, good morning to you. We can talk about this, and we're criticising the government for a lot of what they knew and didn't know and what they released and whatever. But your government, the Conservative government, the previous government, must bear a lot of responsibility on this one. I mean, you're all tarred with the same brush on it, because so much of Axel Rudakabana, so much of his personality developed, so much of him was known or not known. He wasn't counselled, he wasn't taken on board. Do you accept you bear a lot of responsibility for this?
I think what we saw is an absolutely horrendous situation by a vile animal who committed these awful atrocities, the unspeakable, horrendous, vile thing that happened to these young children, innocent young children. A community turned on its head. I think it's right that we have an inquiry, get to the bottom of this, learn the lessons, find the details. Something from the headlines, you would assume something has gone wrong with Prevent. We've heard that it's been referred to them 3 times. We heard that police were aware. We heard that all the agencies were aware and failed to make any sort of sizable intervention to prevent this. We've got to get to the bottom of what happened there. Moreover, we've got to find out who knew what and when and what should have been shared. We've got the independent reviewer of terror legislation telling us that actually the government should have been open with people. It should have told them what it knew. We don't want to prejudice a trial, but there is an element of information that should have gone to the public where that information wasn't shared with the public. It created a void that was filled with information online that created more fear, more division. Terrifying situation, but we've got to get to the bottom of what's happened. We've got to get to the bottom of what went wrong.
Do you think a Conservative government would have would a Conservative government have handled this differently? Do you honestly think?
I think in terms of the handling and the information flow, of course there is a balance. You need to ensure that you don't prejudice any trial, but it's about telling people what's gone on to the best of our ability, but B, not misleading them. We heard quotes from Angela Rayner, I think it was the 31st of July, where she said that people who were suggesting this was an incident of terrorism, were actually spreading conspiracy theories and fake news. You can't deny something that then comes out to be true. It's just irresponsible. The public have the right to know. It undermines trust in the police, it undermines trust in the government and all the institutions that we look at to keep us safe.
But there were a number of failings under your watch, which you must be able to accept responsibility for. 3 referrals to Prevent. Axel Rudakabana was not deemed a terror threat. The family called the police to the home several times. The school raised problems with Axel Rudakabana, taking knife into school on several occasions. He was referred to the Child Adolescent Mental Health Services. Reports in the Times this morning, there were 15 chances to stop him. The majority of those happened under your watch. It is a failing of our public services, isn't it, that we did not stop this violent man from committing what went on to be the most horrific act against children.
I would agree there's been failings here, but I mean, in real terms, I wasn't a minister in the last government, and actually, I'm not sure how much a minister would get to see. I'm not sure how much, I wasn't a government in the last minister, but I'm not sure how much a minister would get to see or not see. We have experts, professionals employed in these organisations like Prevent, who hopefully are able to stop these things, who should be there looking at the evidence that comes forwards. We've got to have this review now, because we've got to find out what went wrong. Either A, has someone failed to do their job, or B, have we not got somebody doing the right job? We've got to get to the bottom of that to make sure this can never happen ever again.
Is Prevent fit for purpose? Because it's failed to stop a number of terror attacks, hasn't it now? These perpetrators are known to the authorities. We hear that time and time again, don't we? The Reading attack, that perpetrator referred to Prevent. London Bridge attack, that perpetrator referred to Prevent. The murder of Sir David Amess, that perpetrator referred to Prevent. Axel Rudakabana referred to Prevent. It is failing to stop dangerous people committing the most horrific acts.
I think, do you know what? There are definitely questions to be answered on that front. The reality is that they probably stopped many, many incidents as well, but we've got to get to the bottom of what went wrong in this case and see whether it's a fundamental failure or not. The reality is that you're trying to deal with vile, evil animals who would commit such atrocities. When you see what went on in Southport, you would not think that a human being would be capable of doing these horrendous things to these innocent little girls. We've got to be better at identifying these individuals and getting them out of circulation and preventing these things. You are right. We've got to have this inquiry, ask those questions and solve this situation so it can't happen again.
Matt, thanks for your time. Appreciate it. Matt Vickers is the Shadow Secretary of State for Crime. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, still to come, we'll be speaking to the Minister for Employment on how the government plans to crack down on benefit fraudsters. That's next.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
It seems that everything is being done to stop us drinking cow's milk.
Yes, and first of all, can I just thank you for having me on? And can I also say that I do respect that the Council has positive intent in offering this guidance. But it is frustrating in farming that the guidance is being given to people based on evidence that fails to take into consideration any context. They say, and it was even parroted again by local news this evening, that dairy produces circa 3 kilos of carbon per litre produced. That is a global figure. In this country, we produce 90% of the milk we drink. We import 10%, of which 80% of that is from Ireland. 98% of the milk we drink in this country is produced in Ireland or this country. In these two locations, there is an abundance of water and there is abundance of grass. And the grassland, therefore, dictates or dominates the diet of the animal. And that grass is growing all year round. The actual carbon impact for UK dairy farms comes down to about 1 kilo per litre.
Yeah.
That is the same as oat milk, which is set at 0.9.
I've heard something over the last month or two, and maybe it's a wacky online conspiracy theory, but I'm told that big dairy producers are adding something to the feed of cattle, adding something to the grass or hay to make them produce less methane. Is that true?
That is a pilot that's been done by Arla Foods. It's not mainstream. It probably won't ever be mainstream. We supply our milk to First Milk, and they have come out and said that this will not happen.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, excitement is growing for the Great British Giveaway and when it will exactly be given away, and that's going to be very, very soon, but we need you to enter. So how much, Ellie?
£50,000. Can you imagine that in your bank account? And it will be totally tax-free as well. You can spend it just how you like. Make sure you don't miss it. Here are all of the details that you need.
Imagine how £50,000 in cash from us could make your new year go with a bang.
Hi, my name's Victoria. I won the Spring Great British giveaway. So the day we got the money in our bank account, everything just felt a lot lighter. I would say if you're thinking about entering, just enter.
You this morning, Alison. I hope you just listened to the results of that poll there, asking about how the handling of Southport has it affected your trust in the authorities, in the legal system. 98% of people said it had. They feel distrustful of our legal system. What's your reaction to that? Do you think it could have been handled better by your government?
Well, firstly, in relation to Southport, I hope you'll understand if I first say that, like everybody in our country, my heart just breaks for the poor families of the 3 little girls and everybody who was injured or hurt in that dreadful attack. And we've seen another attack this morning that also is utterly heartbreaking. When it comes to the question that you asked there, we need to have transparency over all of the elements that have happened here. I'm very, very concerned about some of the things that seem to have gone wrong in this case. That's why it's right that we have an inquiry to get the facts out in the open. And I think that is the best way to get trust in the steps that we need to take forward to put right what is wrong and to make sure, you know, as a matter of course, there should be absolute transparency about what's happened here.
Well, I'm really glad that you've mentioned the word transparency, because there's a really alarming story on the front page of the Telegraph this morning. I'm sure you've seen it. Police in Merseyside claim they were gagged by the Crown Prosecution Service over the Southport attacks. They wanted to put information out there. They wanted to try and address the misinformation that was spreading by giving some details, trying to quell the anger that was building up on the streets. CPS advised them not to say anything. In hindsight now, would you say that was an overreach by the CPS?
Well, I know the police in Merseyside well, as you might imagine, and I obviously can't comment on the source of those reports. You know, that's, until we know what's actually happened, it wouldn't be right for me to do so. The one thing that I would say is that these judgments are very important, because you can put at risk the possibility of a trial and getting to justice. So we shouldn't underestimate how challenging it will be. But as I say, I know the police in Merseyside very well, and they are incredibly good, and they will make their their needs known following these terrible events to the government. As a general point, I've been a strong supporter of Hillsborough law, which, following the terrible events and all that went wrong in covering up that terrible situation, we need to have a duty of candour to make sure that public servants say what they know when terrible things happen, because that's the public's information and it should be out there. And I would say that anybody who's worried about trust in government can show that they want change by voting and supporting Hillsborough law.
Yeah, but Alison, what I'd say to you is, what are all these cases that have collapsed through information being given out? Because I can't think of any. What I'm saying is, we believe, we're listening here as journalists, our job is to challenge lawyers all the time, which is what we do. And because your Prime Minister is a lawyer, the feeling seems to be he rolled over, he succumbed on this, and he didn't give any leeway one way or the other on this.
Well, I don't agree with that. We are told as politicians, quite rightly, not to comment on legal cases because the consequences can be significant. That is true for all politicians and especially the Prime Minister. Keir, as somebody who was previously the chief prosecutor for the country, knows that only too well and what the consequences will be, and he has exercised his judgment. But all the facts about this situation will be known, and most importantly, we will get from the public inquiry recommendations about how we can make sure that the system that is supposed to be there to protect people actually works. We know only too well that we can get recommendations that aren't carried forward from inquiries. We have got to get this inquiry done and then get the consequences known and get those changes in so that we can make sure that people are protected.
OK, Alison, thank you very much. I know we're almost out of time with you, but you are here to talk to us about clamping down on benefit fraudsters by potentially taking away their driving licences. How is that going to work?
So this is already a thing that we do in child maintenance. It's already a thing that can happen. But we want to extend those powers to the social security system. And the bill that we're publishing today gives us the ability to work with banks to uncover where fraud is happening. It gives us more powers so that we can do investigations effectively. And finally, we need this backstop power in the social security system so that if you are not on benefits, so we can't take the money back that you owe through benefits, if you're not on PAYE, so we can't take it back through the tax system, we've got a way to get that money back. And the driving licence facility will mean we can go to a court and say, this person, we've given them ample opportunity to work with DWP to get the money back. They won't work with us, so please disqualify them from driving until they do so. It's a backstop power to make sure that we stop fraud in social security. And there's a reason.
Thanks for explaining that.
It would be dreadful at any time to have fraud. Right now, it's totally unacceptable.
OK, Alison McGovern is the Minister of State for Employment and she's the MP for Wirral South. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for your time and attention today and for watching. We're back again tomorrow from 6.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A chilly one again today. A few fog patches again in places this morning, but much of the country will have a dry afternoon. A bit damp and drizzly in some places, certainly along the south coast, some patchy rain also across parts of northeast England and a few showers further west. But overall, much drier day for northwest England and some good spells of sunshine coming out across parts of eastern Scotland and mostly dry and fine for Northern Ireland, South Wales and southwest England too. A little bit more of that rain just trickling along the south coast. May see some in London, but it'll be fairly light. Most of the day dry. Temperatures, though, even where we've got some sunshine, only 5 or 6 degrees Celsius. And for some, it'll just stay misty and murky all day. A little bit of that rain across the southeast, so affecting Kent into the evening rush hour. Again, nothing too heavy, but just a bit damp and drizzly here. Clearer skies further west. Just a few showers coming in off the Irish Sea and 1 or 2 showers into western Scotland too. Much of central and eastern Scotland dry and clear and pretty quickly again. Those temperatures will be back down below freezing. We'll see another touch of frost forming where we've got the clear skies. Staying pretty cloudy though across East Anglia in the southeast well into the evening. Eventually here that cloud should tend to break up. A few mist and fog patches are possible, but for many it'll be a largely dry and largely clear night, which will allow it to turn a bit colder perhaps than last night, certainly across a good chunk of England and Wales. Any rural spots getting pretty close to freezing. But further west, notice there's a line of rain moving in. That won't take long before it zips across Northern Ireland. A soggy start here tomorrow. And it doesn't stop there. It moves in across the rest of the UK as well. Hitting the colder air, it will provide some snow over the hills of northern England and Scotland for a time during Thursday. That system clears away, but then eyes out in the Atlantic as a storm comes moving in for Friday. Storm Eamonn is going to bring us some problems, and there are meteorological